Alright, cool. Should be live now. How's everything looking and sounding? Nice. I just had to double check something real quick. Hey RS, how y'all doing? Give me one moment. I was actually gonna hop into Twitter Space. I just need to do something real quick. One thing I will do, sort of while we're chilling out for a second, is I'll drop my Discord link. This is just a place where people tend to come if they want to potentially engage on stream, or just engage in the community as a whole. So I was gonna do that as well as prep a few other things. I just saw an interesting Twitter space going on right now. So with Mr. Intuitive, Zach Rector, some of the XRP Cafe guys, and I think maybe some of the Expector guys. I wasn't sure. But I was like, oh, this would be so cool to hop in. Anywho, yeah, we'll get this situated in just a moment. So Jay, like my mod, I need you to let me know what your YouTube name is so I can add you on here. I thought I added you already, but and your name is clearly not Jay on YouTube, so I can't see where you are. Like, whatever. I'm just gonna hop into space. Hopefully you guys can hear pretty well.
Centralized nature of the XRPL. Are those two things at odds?
Is it? Can you guys hear all right?
No, not at all.
Checking.
I have a couple different arguments on why, and just to be clear, to restate my position, it's not that it's 100% centralized. It's always that centralization and decentralization is a spectrum, and the XRPL is much more decentralized, centralized than something like Bitcoin on that spectrum. What Vet's talking about, there's.
But wait, real quick though, are both Bitcoin and XRP on your own personal spectrum? Are they closer to one side or the other?
Yeah, I'd say that Bitcoin is much closer to the decentralized side than the other, for sure.
No, but are they on one side of the 50% mark, is what I'm asking.
Are they both?
Yeah, are they both?
I'd say that it's close, for XRP, but for Bitcoin, it's, heavily to the decentralized side, but not perfectly, right?
But what other arguments?
At this moment, Ripple doesn't even own a validator on the mainnet.
Well, one, that's not true.
And they have zero.
What?
Well, one,
yeah, their one validator is not on the current version.
Yeah, no.
That doesn't matter.
They're not amendment blocked. The current version doesn't matter. It just matters a version that's not amendment blocked, Francis. But anyway, going back to what Beth said.
But it's just one then, right?
Yeah, but that's a talking point they've, invented to make people think like ours, all right?
Come on, scams.
It's very similar. No, but you guys have to realize a lot of the talking points people repeat here come from them. That's a talking point from them. The talking points about
absolutely true.
It's true.
But it's true. That point came from Ripple. That's a point that comes from Ripple.
It's factual. When you say they have only one validator and you say, oh, this is a talking point, is it true or not? I mean, that's a question.
100% true, but that's not.
That's it.
Saying it comes from Ripple's
So they're just debating some stuff about XRP and Ripple or whatever. This is pretty much like encompasses like 50% of the stuff going on Twitter right now. Just debating shit that they probably could have just looked up on the documentation anyway. I'll probably hop in there in a second. I'm just double checking. Anywho, how's everyone's what's today? Friday? How's everyone's Friday going? Yeah, I know it's probably a pretty boring stream so far. I was trying to get something situated and I thought I'd catch a cool chat, but it kind of seemed kind of boring. Here we go. All right. Yeah, this, oh my goodness. Anywho, it's funny too. Part of the whole reason why I started this stream, I might even just start the rant anyway. I was talking to one of my friends just about in the crypto space. I feel like nobody actually cares about anything, and that's like fine to a certain extent. But I find that some of the mentalities that people tend to take almost put them at risk of really being scammed. But because people don't actually care about what's going on in the space, it's almost as if you can just sell them an idea and people will latch onto that idea, even if the idea at best is vaporware, at worst just a flat out lie. And because nobody cares about anything and everything's just about basically getting rich, if you can basically convince people that they'll get rich without questioning how that becomes the case, you just essentially get a whole army of people that will jump into anything. And that doesn't necessarily even need to be a bad thing in itself. It's just when you get people that jump into things that are nothing, and people that throw all this money into projects that really had nothing, that had no no foundation of anything. And this isn't me to like criticize projects. This is mostly like the criticism of like the vaporware, like something that never really gets completed but gets tons and tons of funding or tons and tons of crowdsourcing, and it never gets completed or it never gets anything or it just gets rugged. And I think it's this mentality of like, well, anything that takes you to the moon is a way to get there. But people just sort of peddle these stories that they're going to the moon as opposed to actually describing how you would just construct a rocket. So I figured I'd hop on here because I was kind of going in a little bit on that. And I think it's just, I don't know, it's a weird situation. Yeah, my camera's lagging. Choppy. Goodness. Yeah, my internet is a little weird. Oh, and it's funny too because I've been trying to get better internet. I wanted to get Verizon, but they're not in my area yet. And I have Verizon as like a mobile provider, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll be out there." They still haven't. So it's just like, really? Well. There we go. Anywho, I'm new to, oh, someone just asked a cool question. I'm new to crypto. I follow you. Grateful for content. I know a lot about XRP, but I do not understand Bitcoin utility. Store value. Who would use it as a store value for what? Okay, yeah, this is a really good question, actually. A lot of people are very stuck. A lot of people really just don't understand. They're like, hey, look, I heard of crypto, but people say these things, and it just doesn't seem to make sense to me. And this is a good place to start because we go, okay, well, why is that? Why would you use Bitcoin? Now, people say store of value, and I think that's more of a... so when getting into crypto, there's the technical implementation of things. Like there are all the things that technology could do, and then there's all the dreams that people have for these technologies. And in those dreams, you get people that establish these ideologies. So the idea of Bitcoin being a store of value is almost like this dream that sort of came from that originated from Satoshi saying this is like a new form of money, and people equating that new form of money to gold, and gold being a store of value. So this is a store of value. Fundamentally speaking, you can use Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency as a neutral form of capital to exchange with other people all around the world over the internet, as opposed to opting into a traditional fiat currency. So whenever you deal with fiat currencies, let's say I'm in the US and you're in Japan. There's two separate banking systems, two separate governments, two separate currencies, and the means for us to engage with each other can be relatively difficult. But if we use Bitcoin, for instance, or any other cryptocurrency as a neutral form of capital to be able to exchange value between each other, then we don't have to go through those different segregated systems to try to be able to engage with each other. And in those systems, there's a lot of fees, a lot of friction, it's really slow, it takes a lot of time. You can potentially engage with each other directly on the blockchain. So that's fundamentally the main reason why you'd want to use Bitcoin or any of these cryptocurrencies. It's a neutral form of capital to be able to exchange value over the internet a lot quicker than you would in a traditional setting because of how segregated the banking systems, the currencies, and the governments are in order to be able to do that. That's fundamentally the reason. This has nothing to do with technology. This is just a fundamental thing that you could do. So when I'm in the US and you're in Japan and I want to be able to engage in exchanging value with each other, it potentially could be a lot faster and a lot cheaper for me to use Bitcoin, if presuming that we both are willing to accept it or willing to accept cryptocurrency, than it would for me to go through those traditional outlets. Now, the criticism is the volatility. So, well, how am I going to use this as a trade medium if there's a lot of volatility? And to be honest, I actually blame speculators for that. If we didn't have anywhere near as many speculators that were in Bitcoin, the volatility wouldn't be as insane. It'd be a better trade medium. But that's essentially just kind of how it is. But that's fundamentally why you would use crypto. Like, and now you can get into more on top of that, where there's smart contracts, and you can build applications that run autonomously, and you can build list assets in those applications that can essentially be traded with other assets and other applications. And all of this can essentially be happening all around the world between people that would otherwise have to go through a bunch of intermediaries and go through different payment terminals and go through different systems to engage in those same sort of activities. So one of my mods asked, why do you think vaporware stays? It's dreams. So when people buy into the dream, it's, oh, what is it? Buy the story, sell the dream. There you go. That's crypto for you. So you buy into a story, and then when other people buy into the dream, you sell the story. And that's basically sums up a good portion of the vaporware. So it stays as long as there are people that are continuously buying the story. As soon as there are more people that are selling the dream than buying the story, the vaporware collapses. What purpose for an everyday person? I understand buying for investment, holding, but for your main savings. So this is actually one of the weird fallacies that I find in crypto. People go, what do I do for the regular person? Well, like, let's say we were talking about operating systems, and you go, there's Mac and there's Linux, or there's Mac and there's Windows, and I go, oh, what about Linux? And then someone goes, what does Linux do for the average person? Well, you could install Ubuntu and use it like a traditional operating system, but the average person's experience with Linux is going to be running on some abstract server somewhere, running your web application or whatever, or microservice, whatever, and you're not going to engage with Linux at all, even though the majority of the applications you engage with use Linux or use some variation of a Linux distribution. It's sort of like that. So people have this notion, it's just like the operating systems where, well, hey, look, I use Apple and I use iOS like this, and I hear about Linux, so do I use Linux like this? And it's like, yeah, actually there are certain components of it where you can use it like a traditional operating system, but the majority of its use is actually used to be able to host these back-end systems. And that use is significantly different than the use of a regular person, even though there's certain regular things that you can do. A regular person in crypto can manage a wallet. A regular person in crypto can be able to engage with dApps or DEXs or any of these things. But just because they can doesn't mean everybody will. Just because you can install Ubuntu doesn't mean Ubuntu is going to be the number one operating system that everyone's going to use. There's a lot of complexities to it that the regular person is not going to engage with, that a lot of people that do engage with will. So when you're dealing with financial, or when you're dealing with crypto assets, a lot of these things are going to be dealt with brokers, banks, and financiers. So if you're not any of those guys, right off the bat, a lot of this stuff is just going to be like, why would I do this? Now, the next after that are like developers and people building applications. But even then, after that, why would you even care? Now, you may be one of those independent people where you're like, I want to be able to have sovereign control over my own wealth and over my own money and all of that. And you can do that. But that's no different than somebody saying, I want to have control over my entire machine, so I'm going to install Linux. And I'm going to do everything myself. I'm going to be entirely independent. That's the exact same thing. So when people phrase these things, things like using Linux is the same as using Mac. It's not at all. It could be in some respects, but for the majority of how people use it, that's not how it is. And it's exactly how people trace crypto. What's this? Hey Quincy, do you think self-custody cold storage hardware wallets is going to be banned in any kind of way in the future? You can't ban, so cold storage is, so the entire premise of crypto wallets are based off of being able to create a cryptographic key off of some seed phrase. So it's really, your key is a math problem. You can't ban that. Like, if I wrote down a bunch of random characters and ran it through this algorithm, like, you can't ban that. That address is just the mathematical outcome of an original seed. And that outcome, it can be sort of registered on chain and be used as an address to send, like, funds to. That's it. Like, you can't ban that. There's nothing, it's software. You can't, and most of the things in crypto you can't ban. The closest thing to banning you could do is restrict the use upon brokers and financiers and banks. So you're not banning it, you're just regulating it in such a manner to where all these organizations that want to use it have to use it in this way. It's almost like compliance. Like, if you want to run a system on your own machine, you don't necessarily need to operate by any sort of compliance. You can just do whatever you want. But if you're running a company and you're running X, Y, and Z, there are some compliance needs that you have to abide by. It's not banning. It's not saying you're banning this activity. You're operating in this way in order to be able to be compliant, or you're operating in this way in order to operate in this ecosystem where if you did it by yourself, independent of anybody else, you could sort of just do whatever you want. So it's sort of like that. Someone just said, thank God so much. Finally, I get it. I misunderstood the context of the wording store value. Now I understand. Oh yeah, no. Like, and I think a lot of this has to do with like how people phrase things, and it goes into the whole like selling the buy the story, sell the dream. A lot of the stuff about store of value is like this dream, but even then, it's people will say Bitcoin's a store of value, but then simultaneously go look at how many hodlers that never even like exchange or use Bitcoin or anything. And I'm like, okay, cool. So what would happen if all of a sudden they just started to use it and it started losing its value? Would it still have that same store of value? Like, if it's on the opposite end, if the same people never touched it and then got rid of it and then essentially became just as volatile, would that still be a store of value if the people that are now selling it are losing the money? Because it was a store of value when it was all fun and dandy and they made money, but it's not a store of value when some of these people start going underwater. And the problem isn't that, it's volatile, it's that it's so volatile. Part of what makes a store of value is being able to anticipate the volatility. So the fact that you can't anticipate the volatility puts this whole thing into, well, and don't get me wrong, like, who cares if it's a store of value? I care about what you'd use the technologies for. So whether it's a store of value or whether it's a neutral form of capital or whether it's some sort of new payment terminal is almost irrelevant. But I think people just buy into ideas as opposed to why you would actually do something with it. Like I said, like, what if I said, these, like, I wouldn't even necessarily say like Linux is like an operating system. It is, and people do use it as like a desktop. But like, I wouldn't market that for everybody, and I wouldn't market that experience for everybody either. So I don't think that's a good example. But the main thing is, just because you phrase something in this way doesn't mean people use it in that way. And I think that's essentially what's sort of a weird mismatch in crypto. But I think there's also an element where there are a lot of people in crypto that would never even touch or use the software in the way that somebody, like I said, whether it's these banks, brokers, financiers, developers, the majority of people in crypto would never even use these technologies in this way. So it's sort of this element of like I think these technologies are what the majority of these people use it for. So right now, you can almost say the majority of crypto is basically gambling because people use it to gamble, if you want to put it that way. Even though arguably, if you said there was more activity of people using these technologies for building applications, then it'd just be like a backend. It'd be like a some backend infrastructure for applications. Why do you think people are so stuck on the idea of centralization when it comes to crypto? So decentralization isn't necessarily like a bad idea in crypto. I think people are so like, there's like an ideology of decentralization. So decentralization is great. So right off the bat, I will tell you the things I find great about decentralization. So when I'm building an application and I'm able to run the backend logic of that application on a decentralized network, I'm able to run backend logic for an application of mine at basically next to no cost. There's the transaction fees, and that's part of the reason why I like XDC. They're really cheap. So instead of paying hosting hosting costs, like tens of thousands of dollars a month in server costs, those servers are decentralized, and I pay transaction costs, which are a tenth of a thousandth of a cent in fees or whatever. So me just being able to utilize decentralization to leverage that network to offset the cost is already great. Now, when I'm able to run these applications, since these applications almost run almost as their own sovereign entities, these applications can engage with each other on chain. So right off the bat, if I wanted to build an application and I wanted it to interact with, let's say I wanted to build a Web2 application, and I wanted that application in my own segregated environment to engage with another application in another segregated environment, the tools that I would need to do that would be relatively complex. Now, simply, I might be able to execute a few different APIs, and I might be able to try to have some sort of read and write access into our own private environments, and I may need to set up APIs on my end to be able to do that as well. But when these smart contracts operate on chain, they by de facto can interact with basically any other smart contract on chain. Part of the reason why we have standards is to allow this to be a lot smoother for them to be a lot more compatible. You see this a lot with dexes, with marketplaces, and tokens. A dex, a marketplace, and a token are three types of smart contracts. But because you're able to launch all three of these types of applications on a blockchain network, Marketplace A and token B have nothing to do with each other, but their smart contracts are able to engage with each other. So, let's say token B is like some sort of commodity with some sort of rules or rights behind it, and let's say Marketplace A is some sort of like regulated marketplace or whatever. These are two entirely separate entities. Maybe some business created this asset over here for like brokerage services, and let's say a completely separate exchange created this over here. These are two entirely separate applications that can interact with each other seamlessly without either one of them having to do anything on either part. And this actually scales up for every single application. So you could have 100 applications interacting with each other without every single developer having to communicate or having to collaborate or having to utilize tools from the other developers in order to make their systems compatible. So you could have tons and tons of people from all around the world being able to execute services from other applications without having any excess complexity to do so. If I'm hooking up my application into an API or hooking it up into some sort of like SDK or whatever the crap, there's a lot of stuff I would need to do in order to make sure that my app is able to communicate well with their app. I'm able to execute the same way that a wallet can execute a smart contract function, another smart contract can execute another smart contract function. So every single smart contract out there could potentially be executed by any type of wallet or any other type of smart contract, allowing these applications to be easily and seamlessly able to integrate with each other, as well as be able to move assets or move units of account from one application to another application. So I can keep track of a whole set of a unit of account. So let's say I was doing accounting for some sort of financial application, and it's segregated over here. But I need to move some unit of account from that application into another application. I can easily do that on chain, as opposed to having two entirely segregated systems to have to keep track of who's owning what and who's holding what, and then scale that up times 1,000. Each person is trying to keep track of who's holding what all the time. You can essentially have these applications easily move these units of accounts between each other, and it's a lot simpler using smart contracts to do that than it is to take segregated. And that's each segregated system is different. So you may have a cloud system in this way, you may have a separate cloud system this way, you may have a on-prem API this way, you may have something in an API marketplace over here where it's not in this marketplace over here. Where on chain, if it's all on the same blockchain, they in theory can engage with anything on that blockchain, any smart contract, any token, any address. Everyone is able to communicate with each other seamlessly. I keep my XDC on XDC beta network wallet. This is Saver Ledger. Can you please touch more on time R3 XDC work together? XRP Ledger also involved in Corda. So the only thing that really was interesting with XDC and R3, this is funny. So XDC, the token, and R3 released Corda on the same day. And actually Corda had a token that was also called XDC. So there was like this moment in history where XDC and Corda launched both two separate networks that had the same token name, or at least the token on the network had the same name. And then they're both looking at each other like, what? So there was like this element of like both Corda and XDC got like familiar with each other because of that. Corda eventually they got rid of their token, and then they ended up renaming it to XKD for Core dApps. And XDC is obviously on its own chain, but Corda has what's called Corda Settler. And Corda Settler is essentially a mechanism to keep track of off-chain payments. So because of that weird mix-up at the beginning where they both sort of had the same name for a token, they were familiar enough with each other to sort of have not quite a partnership, but a relationship enough for Corda to be able to integrate XDC into Corda Settler. Now, Corda Settler is integrated with a bunch of different technologies. This goes into like, what is it, Swift, GPO or something, like the Swift payment system, different cryptocurrency networks like XRP and stuff like that. But the main thing is Corda Settler is just a tool to keep track of off-chain payments. And XEC just happened to have that weird mix-up that allowed them to go, hey, is it cool if we integrate you with this tool to allow us to use XDC on Corda? Great. But like I said, it's not an exclusive thing. Corda Settler can be used with basically any payment means. That was just sort of the mix-up that led to that being the case with XDC, which is kind of a funny story, actually. Right after I got hired at the foundation, that was like one of the first stories they told me, and I was like, what? That is hilarious. Because yeah, there was a lot of confusion about XDC and Corda, but mostly because there was like that confusion came because of some organic confusion based off the release. So if R3 has its own token, what would it need XDC for? So the Corda or dApps, XKD is a specific type of token to be used within the Corda ecosystem. If you're within the Corda ecosystem and I just so happen to use crypto payments and you just so happen to use something else, it'd be nice to be able to utilize Corda Settler to be able to keep track of other people's payment technology without them having to adopt to my technology. So if I'm on Corda and I'm using XKD, it would be very nice for me to be able to keep track of trade partners of mine who may be receiving assets on the XRP or XDC network, or potentially even receiving XRP and XDC as a whole, and being able to keep track of that as we're engaging with each other. So part of it is just an interoperability component to where not everyone's just going to use your technology, and the assumption that everyone will is just silly. People use other technologies. Being compatible with them is great. You can't just assume everyone's just going to use one tech and everyone's just going to default to not using any other tech. That's like saying, why use Apple when there's Microsoft? Why use Google when there's Firefox? Why use that's basically what ends up happening. And what ends up happening with crypto is there's a level of compatibility because things can't be segregated. I would honestly say things in crypto seem to be more segregated than things seem to be in the traditional web, primarily because the traditional web spends its time trying to connect itself with each other, while everyone in crypto seems to be segregating themselves. So it's an element of who do you want to engage with and what technologies are going to use to engage with them, and you need to be able to be compatible with the technologies they're using, otherwise that engagement's just not going to happen. Oh yeah, I was going to hop in this space. Give me 1 second. Yeah, here we go. God dang it, I always do this to myself. All right, here, I'm going to start this up.
Scams would agree is that it's outside the control of any government or anybody, essentially, any individual. And yes, the capabilities of the network will not allow it to be used in the global regulated financial system, but it could have a nice role as that non-sovereign outside money. JB's made that point before. I've always agreed with it. I wish he wouldn't have run away. I think maybe I was too hard on him, Mr. I.
Yeah, a bit maybe. What I agree with 100%, and nobody is denying that Bitcoin was the first. There's like this common agreement. Bitcoin was the first. That's it, undeniable, and that makes it valuable by default. It's the first. It's the one that kicked all of this off, depending on what you believe. And a lot of people got in through Bitcoin. I got in through Bitcoin. A lot of people got in through Bitcoin.
Vet, did you see that on December 12th, which was the anniversary of Satoshi's last message on the forums? Did you see that? What he said?
Attack vectors?
Yeah, more than he can count.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's the truth, because all of these systems have like their flaws, right? It's what you aim for is to have hopefully more benefits than flaws, and that's it. But nothing is bulletproof. Certainly.
Yeah, but it sounded.
Yeah, it looks like some serious drama is going down in this space right now. I've got people messaging me in this space.
Yeah,
he said
he's
right
called
now.
other people's places.
It's kind of funny.
Well, for a celebrity, yes.
Don't worry, scams. The public knows.
So guys, before we got into that with scams, what was the main question posed there?
We were just having the centralization debate. Story as old as time.
Of which, just if you could pose the question again, just so I can hear it.
Well, there was a lot, but I asked Scams where he would place Bitcoin and XRP respectively on the centralization scale.
Quincy,
the classic one, Mr. I.
Any opinion into that, Quincy?
Oh, Quincy in the building.
Yeah, it depends on how you want to go about like looking at like centralization. So I know people like to criticize like proof of stake and proof of work, where proof of stake can be more centralized based off people being able to have more capital and being able to acquire more stake, and proof of work being more centralized due to people only have enough money to be able to be able to compete in mining. So there's that element. I know people like to call out XRP being centralized because of the UNL. I know people like to say that Ripple has a lot too much influence and too much control. But I think that influence and control, even with the UNL, is a different type of centralization than would be the technical centralization of stake or proof of work. But that's the argument. So if you want to go and have that argument, there's that. But yeah.
Yeah, let's have it. What would be technical versus the UNL not being technical?
Oh, scams! By the way, good that Quincy brought this up.
Vet.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Quincy.
Yeah.
Vet, you do that a lot. You know I love you. I think you're the MVP. But
No,
you
so
do
I need to be harsh with scams.
There's
It's
no
not-
feelings here, please.
It's not that the UNL isn't technical; it's more cultural. So it's almost like this. It's almost like the notion that, well, if Ripple backed off on the UNL and let's say they just didn't take as much lead and control in anything that they did. Let's say they took a step back on how much cultural impact they have on the space. I don't think they'd be getting as much criticism as they are now. Where I think you would have to essentially redefine the incentives for what I said before, for like proof of stake, proof of work, for any of these other more incentive based controls that may lead to these outcomes. I think the UNL is just more cultural, or it's more decision wise rather than like an actual incentive.
I love that.
So if I wanted to today, Quincy, run a completely different UNL list than Ripple's, where every validator is different, could I do that?
Yes, you can. And actually, my argument isn't saying that you can't. My argument was that's the argument people have when they say the UNL is centralized. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying these are the arguments people have when they want to make the case that it is.
If I did that, would I be on the same network still as everyone else?
The UNL, yeah. Or if you ran your own UNL.
Yeah, that was different than Ripple's, like 100% different.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell them that, or should I?
No, you would fork.
The fork.
Ripple's kind of like the OG, though. You know,
you would fork.
So
even if
so from my understanding, and you can very much correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding was even if you chose your own UNL, as long as you were peering to other nodes on like the mainnet, you would essentially be just as on the mainnet. Now, don't get me wrong, I would love to be educated, so please tell me why.
Yeah, no, this is correct what you said. Yeah,
Oh.
when you have enough overlap with everybody else, then you're on the same network. But Scams was saying if you have a total different list than anybody else, then
I thought he was just
fork
saying
on
if the list you had was entirely different than the UNL list, not different than every other validator. My mistake.
Yeah, you got to be sometimes careful with Scams. He puts those tricks in.
The overlap is very high, right? So you have to have a list that basically resembles the majority of the current list. And this is why I do believe it's technical. It's not just about cultural influence. We can't just come up with our own lists tomorrow and just say, well, we're going to use these instead, unless we got 100% or 80-something% of people on the same day to change their lists to a hugely coordinated effort. Otherwise, we'd all fork and be on completely different networks. So it absolutely
Why do you
is a
think David and
technical
Arthur
thing.
did that?
Well, you need to have some way to come to consensus, and if you're not using the other models, this is the model they came up with.
No, I'm saying why did they choose such a high threshold?
Oh, it's in the Ripple consensus white paper. There's reasons why for error rate and such. Otherwise, you could end up having a lot of other network issues. They have a whole bunch of mathematical proofs there that discuss how those numbers were derived upon.
And I think David, I know that he said that difficulty to change these things is a good thing, not a bad thing. It should be hard to change.
Yeah, changing things, if one person can just flip a switch and change it is bad. But we look at today, Ripple could change their UNL list, and the second they change that list, it changes the people in power, right? Because everyone's using that list. And that's where this becomes a little problematic and is different
But they
than
could
Bitcoin. No
choose not
single
to.
party on Bitcoin can just change some list or something to change who are the top people mining. That's all based on the effort the miners put in, and there's no control anyone but yourself has on that.
But that's a difference, Games, where on that side, you are forced to trust whoever it is, right? No matter what. And on the XRPL, you can choose the chain.
No, you're
Like you can choose
mistaken.
the chain.
The word trust doesn't even come into play here. You're not trusting them. They're providing the work that they've done it, and the protocol enables them to publish the next block, not because of trust, but because of proof, right? Proof they've done the work.
It has something to do with trust, because if those people would start, I guess,
but it's not trust in the.
All right, yeah. So they're gonna go back and forth on that, like probably to the end of time. We will be sitting here right before the great heat death of the universe, and we're gonna tune into that space, and they're gonna be going, well, and basically just having this semantic argument in a sense. I see a few questions in here, and I got a little bored in that space. I might hop in a little bit later, presuming they actually move on. But anywho, someone asked, what's your advice for storing digital assets? Any specific wallets would you recommend? So I personally like a handful of different wallets. I know people like different wallets based off of their comfort in crypto. So some people may just jump onto MetaMask or jump onto Corda or jump onto like any sort of like web wallet or software wallet that they could have. And that's a very basic way of managing your crypto. As long as you're able to manage your keys, that's the main way a lot of people manage their crypto. Now, a lot of people want to be a bit more secure and hold it on cold storage. And that is a bit more secure because you don't run the risk of, your browser being compromised or your wallet being compromised on your phone. And with that, people like to go into, well, do I like Ledger? Do I like Decent? Do I like all? I arguably say they're all relatively analogous to each other. I know Ledger got a huge criticism because they had a bit of a compromise. So obviously there's that. But it's almost like someone asked me, like, hey, Quincy, what's a good password manager to use? I'm like, I mean, I guess I use like these passwords, but you can kind of use any of them, any ones that you trust. So if you don't trust Ledger anymore, don't use Ledger. But there's like Decent and is it Tezos? There's a bunch of other ones out there. I wouldn't necessarily say any of them are any better than any of the other ones outside of like the user experience. I like Decent because I like the fingerprint scanner. It's cool. I had a Lipple wallet. I personally don't like them. It's a touchscreen one, and you have to do a bunch of stuff with like scanning. You have a whole bunch of scanning stuff for being able to like make a transaction. So I'm not the biggest fan of that. But a lot of people like it because it's touchscreen. So it's like, oh, cool, this touchscreen. I don't care that I have to use the camera or whatever. But yeah, that's just it. Just I would say if you can find a hardware wallet that you trust, great. I don't necessarily have any sort of like pickings on either one. I'll say that I hold Decent, but at the same time, Decent just happens to be a big wallet for XDC. There are other wallets that are out there that may not be big for XDC, therefore I don't hold them. But that doesn't make them any worse or anything. Anywho, one thing that I'm gonna start doing on this stream a bit more is, so right now I sort of have like the day streams and the daily streams, and these are super cool. And I kind of want to just hang out on here. I want to sort of foster a community a bit more. I want to talk in these spaces a bit more. I know a lot of other like influencers in the crypto space or whatever, and they actually have really cool topics that they talk about, sort of like in the last space we were in. And I have like my Discord that I've sort of been chatting with, not only just community members but other people in the space. So I want to share those experiences. But then later on, not even later on, but like sort of at night, I kind of want to have like this sort of like low key, super chill. It's a live stream, but definitely not talking so much more about crypto and techno and like how technical things are. It's just more general hanging out with people in the space. I hang out with a lot of people in the space. Like I said, I'll play games with them, or we'll hop on like a Twitter space, and we're not even talking about crypto. But like every so often, like something may come up, and it's like really cool, and we have like a really cool, interesting discussion. But we didn't go into discussion thinking we were gonna have like a cool discussion. We just were like, oh, I'm in crypto, you're in crypto, let's chat for a bit, and something cool ends up happening. So Quincy, does Decent Wallet send your fingerprint to their network or company? I do not believe so. I do not believe there's any sort of way for them to send your fingerprint. But that's my understanding. So, but yeah. So I see that during the day I have like these general spaces and these general like conversations, but at night we sort of have these more casual conversations, and they end up being really cool. And funny enough, because everyone's at work during the day, of course, I end up like running into the coolest people at night. I had a chat with like David Schwartz one time, like 6 months ago, and it was like at 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. And just randomly just hopped into a space. And it was like, whoa, what? And just being able to run into people like that is super cool. But it doesn't typically happen in like the middle of the day. It's one of those like late night things, and I didn't really think about it until like I'm like up at like midnight in the middle of a space, and like just random people, or not even random people, but like just interesting people rambling about just interesting topics, and I'm like, oh dude, I might just like hop on here. Someone's like, can you sell me the idea of XDC? Interesting way to phrase that. So when a lot of people go describe like blockchain or crypto, they get so into the technicalities. So people will go, oh, this network has this TPS, and this network is EVM, and this network, has this many nodes, and we have this TVL, and none of that tells you anything about the network. Like imagine somebody saying, hey, what type of car do you have? And you go, yeah, it has a steering wheel, it has 4 wheels, and it has 4 doors and a trunk. And it's like, you're not really describing me your car. You're breaking down the components of a car, but like describing your car. It's like, oh yeah, I have a relatively like fast minivan that I use to pick up the kids. Okay, cool. Like that minivan, that car is used to pick up the kids, where that sports car may be used for racing, as opposed to just describing the sports car as a 2-door, 4-wheel, fast engine car versus the 4-wheel, you see what I mean? Like it's silly. It's like you wouldn't say that you would describe the elements of the car that it does that makes it different. So when it comes to these blockchain networks, the number one thing that makes XCC different than a lot of these other networks is the activity that persists on the network. One of the biggest things that XCC as a network's trying to do is being able to take traditional trade finance activity and bring it onto a decentralized environment. When XCC was created, it was created by Zinfin, a trade finance organization that wanted to use blockchain technology as a means to be able to expand their ability to engage with trade partners. And they were able to engage with TradeFinex and a couple other trade partners just to be able to operate the same way, but be able to operate in a more efficient manner too. So, it started off with them, but now we have Trade Tech, we have Trade Trust, we have all of these different, and trust me, I could probably, actually I might even try to see if I can pull this up. Like yesterday I had a news story on all the stuff that came out. And that's the thing, a lot of stuff that came out was all of these institutions that are using the XCC network to facilitate some activity that they were already doing, but they're doing it on chain because it's faster, it's cheaper, it's more efficient, and their ability to engage with trade partners solely comes on their ability to interact with the internet, not basically the amount of partnerships they may have in their local jurisdiction. As a broker operating on chain, you can now interact with any other broker anywhere in the world online, as opposed to only having access to bigger and bigger banks, and then having a personal relationship with every because this comes down to a certain relationship the businesses have to be able to engage with each other. These things aren't seamlessly integrated into each other. They have to physically come and meet up and engage with each other. But if you're able to have an asset and have an application that asset can reside in, and that asset can facilitate some level of activity, let's say it was the example I like to give a lot is let's say you had a market for commodities, and people were taking you had different farmers that let's say you had a market of commodities, and you had different farmers that were listing these commodities into this market, and you had almost like a local marketplace full of commodities being listed into this market, and you had people buying into this market. Well, as these people buy into this market, those assets, those commodities can be passed from one application into another. So what ends up happening is you end up having some set of activity, basically like the farmer listing the asset to sell their good, and then that's able to move into another bit of activity where now that asset can be placed in, let's say it's like an options or something, or futures, and then let's say it gets placed into a supply chain, and let's say it gets through the supply chain it makes it into the store or whatever. Well, they didn't need to use the blockchain to justify all of that. They used the blockchain to be able to facilitate that in a more efficient environment than they would have in a traditional setting, because each person that they wanted to engage with would be another segregated system that would need to essentially sync with every other system that's trying to connect with it, as opposed to just blockchain and smart contracts being able to pass assets and pass data between each other autonomously. This is hilarious. This is a good question. Oh my god. Okay, if you're extremely wealthy sometime down the road, will you still be interested in working as a blockchain developer, or would you rather early retire and spend money around? Look. I'm gonna give you the lowdown. What happens if I had enough money basically to do anything? I would literally do that. Do anything. there's so many different apps that I'd love to build, and they're not crypto related in any regard. So I'd probably just go do that. Now, don't get me wrong. If I see a certain application that I'd like to build that utilizes blockchain technology, I'd probably do that. But it'd probably be more focused around finance and trade in some regard, as opposed to like a consumer gaming application that I think people may like, or a basic like sort of developer tool that other developers may use. I would just go out and just build things that I thought were useful. Whether or not they use blockchain would be whether I found the blockchain useful for that use. So, and the reason I say that is if it was around finance, trade, assets, anything like that, probably, mostly because I know I can utilize blockchain to offset a lot of the costs that I would have done traditionally. But for quite a few other things, it's like, well, I'm just going to use the tools that I find are best. So that's what I would do. I'm not necessarily one of these gung ho, oh, blockchain is everything people. I consider myself like a core like software developer. I will use the tools at my disposal I will use the best tools at my disposals to be able to create the best thing that I see that I can create. So it's not just being exclusively blockchain. It's finding the right use for the things that you want to build. And that's really what I want to focus on. I like blockchain. There's a lot of cool things in blockchain, but I'm not going to like cram a blockchain block into a freaking, a blockchain square into a round hole of anything else just for the sake of blockchain. And I'm not going to do it vice versa either. I'm not going to, jam like something that has something to do with something else and jam it into blockchain just because. I'm going to find what I think could be utilized best. And to be honest, I would use the blockchain because some level of activity that I wanted to do is already persist on that chain, and I can be able to tap into those smart contracts relatively easy. That's why I would use the blockchain. But yeah, I would basically just do anything that I'd wanted to do. Build any type of app, work with any type of project. It doesn't have to be blockchain, but it could be. Like, it just depends on what I want to do. Oh yeah, I might hop back into that space again. That was getting kind of boring. The only reason I get a little weird about the spaces is sometimes people get a lot. So I genuinely love to talk about different ideas. And even when I was in that space, I was like, hey, look, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is my understanding of things. A lot of people don't have that, and they just either want to bang over the head that either you're wrong, they're right, you have a misunderstanding and you need to be educated, or you're stupid, or that. And part of me is like, look, like, you can be wrong, you can be right, but just being able to have a conversation about something allows us all to be able to explore new ideas to where we can all be able to gather something from this, rather than all of us just sort of shouting in each other's faces that, oh, whatever. I don't know. I like Twitter, but I hate Twitter at the same time. No, I got this. I love Twitter, but I hate X. And you can do it vice versa. I love X, but I hate Twitter. Either way, it has the two sides to it that are kind of funny. I see a few people asking questions, but I was going to hop in this space again. Let's see what this. Yeah, literally everyone's like, why'd you leave? I'm like, bro, it got stale. Like, I was sitting there, we were having a good conversation, and next thing you know, these guys are just like basically yelling at each other. I'm like, cool, but like, what am I supposed to do? Sit here, whip out the popcorn, and let my chat just like let these like two guys just yell at each other over who's right and who's wrong? I didn't feel like I was gaining much from it. I think it would have like kind of died down. Someone was literally telling me like, oh, can we like break down like the semantics and all this? And I'm like, I don't really want to sit here spending all my time, decoupling semantics. I want to actually talk about the things that I find interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah, literally, Mr. I's like, you left. Why'd you leave? I'm like, bro, like, got interesting to chat. Like, come on.
In the case that you described, what do you think would an exchange do? Would they go with you or with, let's say, what Ripple says?
They're going to go with the consensus, right? Because if 80% of the network has decided they want to go in a different direction and the only other side is Ripple, it would seem logical they're going to go with the majority in that case.
You know, Vet, I made the same assumption as you, that all these exchanges were running. Which leads me to believe, with fairly high certainty, Binance is using the cluster and not running their own infrastructure.
Yeah, I think you're not far off from that. I think personally, it's just personally what I know. I think apart from the small exchanges like Bitrue and so on, I think Kraken is the only big one that runs its own infrastructure. Could be totally wrong.
This is why Wheatsy is doing what he's doing. What bullshit is that?
Can you
That
finish
a multi-billion-dollar exchange can't spend a couple $1,000s running a validator and a full history node or whatever, and they're fucking leeching off the cluster. Can you believe that shit?
Yeah, the problem is, I think, more than the hardware stuff, is that you need to put someone dedicated so the personal cost for the personnel
They make
is
tens of
higher.
billions of dollars a year.
Yeah, but every penny counts. Scams, and every penny counts. I guess that it's other way around. If people, yeah, I think the issue is you may have run yourself into a scenario where you provided them that already for free, maybe, or maybe you charged them. I don't know. Actually, we don't know really if they charge or whatever, but you provided them the infrastructure, and now they don't have to run it anymore. And now to get out of that dependency is maybe more difficult.
They run their own Bitcoin nodes, right?
I mean, why wouldn't you? Because they probably also run miners.
They do. Binance has its own pool. It's like the 8th biggest, 7th biggest pool.
Nice.
They also integrated Lightning into the exchange, and you have to run.
Do they win some blocks?
To do that. Of course they do.
Nice.
Of course they do. In each epoch, in each 2-week epoch, they win at least 24 blocks.
That's some juicy Bitcoin.
Yeah, especially fees are high right now. They're like 3 Bitcoin per block.
Look, they play the double game. They even have an inscription marketplace. So even the inscription folks, they're gonna also profit off of those.
You know who's right behind them and nobody talks about? SBI. Everyone's always like, oh, SBI and XRP. They don't realize they have miners too and mine on Bitcoin. They're like the 8th or 9th.
Them little baby miners. Come on, man. Foundry's getting about.
All right, yeah. I'm sorry. I'm just these things are freaking just boring. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of that? I don't know. I was bored. I was pretty bored. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? I need to know because I'm sitting here and I'm like, I feel so bored out of my mind. I don't know. And if you guys find it interesting, I'll definitely chill because you never know. It feels like fishing. You never know what you'll catch. You never know what you'll engage with. But I don't know. Sometimes I'm just sitting here and I'm just like, ugh, I don't know. What do you guys think? There was a few cool questions that I saw somebody asked earlier. And I figured I'm like, oh, that'd be way more interesting to explore than just. Don't get me wrong, I'll hop in and out of these spaces. I saw this Mobley Media space. I didn't know if it'd be. Some of the spaces I like hopping in because I know I can chat a bit. I don't typically like hopping in a space just to listen. I mean, don't get me wrong, unless it's super cool. If Elon Musk was in a space with I don't know, whatever. Probably hopping in that space would be cool for a sec. But I like hopping in spaces that I know I can engage with because I think it'd be a lot more fun. Oh yeah, so someone asked a good question earlier. Okay, this wasn't the question I saw earlier, but this is a funny or interesting question. So if XRP, the XRP Ledger / Ripple is being used for banking and Bitcoin is not, I mean, does it, and doesn't have all the partnerships? Why do those guys argue? I mean, Ripple is trusted; they're not going to screw that up. So this is really funny. So I see this all the time where people go, "Oh my God, what about all this? What about all this? Everything in crypto is optics. Everything." So you may be going, "Oh my God, Ripple has these partnerships. Holy cow!" And maybe your optics for that looks so good, but then a lot of these other people are going, "Well, look, everyone's just excited about Bitcoin. That's it. Everyone talks about it. Everyone's excited about it. They're saying it's the future. They're saying it's that." You may be going, and it's saying I know you stated XRP and banking. Ripple may be utilizing or maybe integrating themselves with the banking system, but they may be using XRP as a tool to do that. That doesn't necessarily mean that the bankers that are interacting with Ripple really give a damn about what technology they're using to be able to conduct whatever business they're conducting. They generally don't care. So from their perspective, they may actually be actively interacting with Ripple, and they may not actually care about any of that, of what Ripple's doing to be able to run that service. They just care about the service they're getting. But when they see in the news, when they see people talk about stuff, when they see the name crypto as a whole, Bitcoin comes up. So there's this optics of, oh, everyone talks about Bitcoin, everyone says Bitcoin's the future, everyone says this, everyone says that, everyone does that. So like with all of this attention on this big like orange freaking coin, usually there's this notion of, well, if that's the one that's getting all the attention, that's the one that everyone's going to use. Like, it's not like these bankers are having this super sophisticated idea of like, oh, the banking, da, da, da. They know what they know. And you could probably go and say, hey, you can do this in this way with these technologies. And then they may be able to go, okay, let's do that. I think the number one thing that's being said right now is the notion of money outside of the financial system. We're not even getting into tokenization. We're not even getting into like dApps. The idea of money that escapes the financial system, or money that can engage with other systems without going through multiple elements of friction, is like a very baseline idea. And you may go, oh, but Bitcoin fees are expensive. Well, if these bankers are thinking in millions and billions of dollars, who cares for a $50 fee? Who cares for a $200 fee? Who cares? Like, the fee is still, the speed and the fee is still insanely faster than the traditional system. So a lot of these guys, and I say this too, because when I worked at a private equity firm for a bit, I met a lot of these guys that just sort of said, oh, Ethereum's the big one, let's do that. And that was basically the level of engagement was that. Everyone was into Ethereum, therefore let's do that. Not like, oh, well, I see all these partnerships and I see all this and I see all that. No, it's sort of like it's what everyone's talking about, so that's what I'm going to get into. Then from there, they may go, oh, Ethereum does this and Ethereum does that and maybe that. But really what immediately comes up in people's faces is immediately is going to form their opinion on the broader space. So most people aren't even thinking about all the complexities that there is in terms of integrating with the banking system and autonomous finance and all that. There's this almost idea of having money divorced from a government system that is really capturing the idea, and Bitcoin owns that idea right now. That's really what it is. Like, you could have, I make the joke of, you could have someone build a network that cured cancer and they wouldn't care. And it's not like, it's obviously being a little facetious, but the biggest thing is if it's not the biggest thing that everyone's seeing right in front of their face, you're not going to get that same level of attention, and you're not going to get that same level of like commitment you would. And that commitment, I would honestly say, is only based off an idea. If they were sitting here like evaluating these technologies, which is funny because they wouldn't be evaluating the technologies, they'd probably hire a team of people that would choose what tech stack they're going to choose and do that. So even the people that are making the decisions, the bankers or stuff, it's not like they're going to be the ones that, like, you can ask them right now, go to a banker and ask them, what's their tech stack made of? Do they use AWS? Do they use Google Cloud? Like, what's your tech? They don't care. They don't know. They may go, oh, we use this nebulously in this way, whatever. But they don't care. They just do this. It just does the service that it needs to do. So right now, most businesses aren't using crypto. There are a very small few set of businesses that are actively going out and trying to utilize blockchain. A lot of these businesses are based out of the country, whether it's based in like Singapore, Dubai, Israel even. But for the most part, a lot of the big, especially big US companies are very hesitant. So all they see is they see what everybody else sees. It's not like they have like this special, like, oh my God, look at this network using this finance or whatever. And the people that do that were already people that were, and they're not the biggest ones. They're big, but they're not that big. It would be like, you're more likely to find a regional banker try to get their bank to utilize blockchain technology than you would see some like giant Goldman Sachs banker actively going, we're going to do this in the future. They might just go, okay, that seems cool. Throw that in our tech stack, and we can interact with these people this way. Like, it's not like this huge thought out thing that they care so badly about. They run their business however they run their business. Blockchain's an interesting thing to get into that could do different things that's new, but they're not like, they don't have like these super thought out ideas of caring of who's doing what. If they can run a process better than they traditionally run it, then that's all that matters. So if they see Bitcoin and people are saying Bitcoin's the future with blockchain, then that's all they're gonna. Now don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean they're gonna use Bitcoin. That means that'll be the first thing they see. And then if they go, maybe not Bitcoin, they'll go to Ethereum, and they'll literally just go down the list. Like, because they'll be like, okay, cool, maybe we can do this, maybe we can do that, maybe we can do that, maybe we can do that. And then maybe when they get to XRP, they're like, cool, XRP. But you got to remember, XRP just had that whole lawsuit for a long time. There were a lot of businesses that didn't want to touch XRP because they didn't even know what was going to be the deal with it. So there's also an element where there's that too. The optics of the lawsuit for a long time very much made a lot of businesses hesitant, where the optics of Bitcoin and the enthusiasm very much made people a lot more open to the idea of crypto in general. And I guess that's like my 2 cents on that. Do you think crypto projects and apps will have to start dealing with government and banks in order to even stay alive and have a chance to succeed? Yeah, that's an interesting question. Do you think a crypto project basically has to integrate with some element of the traditional finance system in order to be in order to be like operational? And the answer to that is almost yes. What are you gonna do about like KYC and identity like concerns? Like it's really hard to do that by itself. You almost can't do that with some level without some level of centralization in some regard. Either a giant institution that you trust, or just the government itself. Now that doesn't mean in every capacity, in every possible way, in every way on blockchain, it has to integrate in this way. There are ways that you can operate entirely exclusively on blockchain. But a lot of the things that we see, especially in finance, you have to have some element, and it doesn't mean it's like, oh yeah, it's the top of the central. No, it just means that you're gonna have to have some component of the traditional system be able to communicate certain things so these services can be used on blockchain. If I can't verify a user, if I can't verify an organization, if I can't verify an asset, then how am I able to engage with it? And there's an element where that's gonna have to have some integration with the traditional systems, or at the very least, integration with current regulations to make that even happen. How long have I been streaming so far? Oh, sweet. It's been just an hour. Awesome. Oh my goodness. All right, we're going to try this space out again. Third time's a charm. And like I said, I like the spaces, but sometimes, and let me know, like, honestly, here's what we should start doing. Just because I'm so quick to leave a space if you guys think it's boring. If all y'all unanimously said, Quincy, let's just eject this. Ejectocito. I'll be like, yeah. Let's get out of here. It's kind of, because I get bored from these kind of easily too, but sometimes they're interesting. I may not find them interesting, but if you guys find them interesting, I'm down to stay. But if you guys don't find them interesting, just say like 0 out of 10 stream or something. Just say the stream, or there's 0 out of 10 space or something, like the space sucks. Because I think it's cool. Like I like Mr. I and I like Zach Rector, especially the spaces that they do. But
I gotta go back and look if there were any Ripple Pay open source code bases I can look through.
But sometimes they just get like, it just gets silly or boring or just sort of repetitive or redundant, and people are just yelling over each other or what.
If it was around in 2004, and yet you have the whole thing of like Jed in 2011 employing David. Like, what did they develop?
Well, you got to remember that at the core of this is they're just distributed systems, right? So David's, specialization was in distributed systems. So it makes sense that you would go to people like that who have this expertise in setting up distributed networks, right? The missing link was, if you're trying to do this, of course, you had to have the idea. How do you then solve the double spend problem, at least at that time, outside of proof of work, right? Because Satoshi had kind of use this, proof of work mechanism to kind of come to his macros, solve the problem. And there was no other real iteration of that. And David and them kind of thought of a new way to do it. Like, it was innovative.
But FBA is what is used to solve the double spend problem, correct?
Now called proof of authority. Yeah, you could call it both.
So if that existed in 2004, then how does that timeline match?
David's been on record saying that it didn't. He says that Satoshi was the first one to solve the double spend problem.
For a native asset, IOUs are a little different because there's controlling issuers. So there's nothing to solve because you do have somebody who can control the issuance of it.
Unsolved mysteries.
Where'd Yizzy go?
I think, were you here for, you weren't here in the beginning, Scams. It was so fun.
I wasn't. I didn't hear Yizzy talk at all. He was quiet when I joined and then he left.
Because he was probably weeping softly.
Oh.
Mr. I, was I too hard on Yizzy B?
No, you weren't hard. I disagree with the weeping. I mean, there's been other times when he's actually weeped, so,
Well, he did leave.
He did leave. He wanted to give, this was his appreciation date of Mr. I randomly. Conversations here are pretty impressive. How long they can go with the constant debate. It's pretty epic.
It's the nature of these subjects. You know, they're able to be argued in multiple ways without being 100% true or 100% false.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Dog doesn't know it's its own tail. Go ahead, Meadow.
Thanks, McQuack. Appreciate coming on your show.
Yeah, thanks, McQuack.
I wanted.
I got you.
Is McQuack show?
Yes.
No?
It's McQuack and Scams. But I wanted to say, can you define like
Scam Daddy?
I'm not gonna say that, bro. Come on.
You're on the list for that, remember.
I'm on the blacklist. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was just like, I don't know. Like, sometimes the spaces can be dead. It's funny, too. I feel so bad because the stream I was doing yesterday, I hopped on a space, and we had a bit of an interesting convo, but it sort of took a weird left turn. And normally those would be kind of annoying, but it would have made for kind of an amazing stream. So this guy's like, "Oh, Quincy," like he was like basically like trying to accuse that I was an AI, and you could sort of tell he was a troll. So I like flipped it on him, and basically I just started like accusing him, like, "Oh, you're the AI, you're the AI, that's what an AI would do. That's something an AI would say." And like I knew the guy was a troll, but I'm like, what else are you gonna do with the troll? And it was so funny, but my stream like crashed like literally like right at that time, so I didn't get a chance to like capture it. And I'm like, look, if Twitter gets stupid, at least you have moments like that. But sometimes Twitter can just be a little blah, 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 blah. Oh yeah, so one thing I was thinking about doing, here, I'm gonna try this out. I was gonna try this a little bit later, but we're gonna try this, out. Let me see. I was thinking about doing like a Discord Q&A where literally you guys can hop on Discord and just ask me questions. And we'll keep it. I was thinking about doing it later tonight, but I might do it. It depends if my moderator's free right now, but we'll see. But yeah, I thought that'd be cool. Sort of like I see a lot of questions being asked down here, and I'm like, it'd be cool just to be able to like elaborate on some, because some people ask like really elaborate questions, and sometimes their question has multiple questions in that question. So it'd be cool to be able to emphasize that a bit. If you guys have any questions now, definitely ask. Like, definitely down for asking chat questions. What the hell? Jesus Christ. So last time I checked, there was like 30 people in my chat. Now there's 70. Oh, dang. I was not expecting that. Give me one moment. Oh, shoot. I was like, yeah, just like 20 people. Like almost 100 people in here. All right, so I'm hanging out in general chat right now. So if you guys go to the Discord, honestly though, I'm gonna have to take a second to. There we go. I'm about to drop the Discord in the chat. Now, give me one moment. There we go. Now, this is sort of a test, so if it doesn't really go too well, I might wait until I can spend more time moderating it. But the Twitter Spaces weren't going really well, so I figured, why not try this out and see how it goes. I know I have a lot of crazy, like if you've seen the Discord, I'm not too active in the Discord. I'm trying to be more active now, but it's like meme central around XDC and a bunch of other stuff in the Discord. So I know there's quite a bit of activity. Yeah, so if you guys want to hop in there, hop. Oh, it's invalid. What the heck? Give me a second. What the hell? Oh my goodness. I'm surprised because I don't know why it's saying invalid. Considering so many people joined this space. XCC Meme Central. Yeah, Bobby Jonas. All right, so I see Bobby Jonas in the chat. Highly active community member. Super cool dude. Actually, check out his channel. He actually probably the #1 XDC meme channel. Oh sweet, you got a guess in here. Hey, what's up? Let me see if I can. Hey, can you hear me? Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, what's up? What?
Oh, that's cool. Are we still on the live stream or is it just in the Discord now?
No, we're on the live stream. We're on the live stream.
Oh, cool. I'm still getting used to this technology. My question was, since you used to work for XRP, right? And then you moved over to XDC.
I work for the XDC
Developing
Foundation.
for.
I work for the XDC Foundation. Previously, I worked at a private equity firm, but we were moving into crypto, and I was primarily working on XRP at the time and Corda.
Okay. So I kind of consider you somewhat of an expert on the XRP ledger because of your development in that. And so one of the questions I had was, I haven't heard anybody ever really address this, but on the value of XRP, for example. So if Ripple has an endless amount, billions of XRP, and they're loaning that out through their ODL to banks to use it, and they can settle in seconds. It seems like they could just use the billions in dollars over and over multiple seconds at a time. So that would keep the value of it down because there's no scarcity there.
So actually, let me actually clear up a lot of things here. So one of the things that is going to attribute value to any of these networks, but XRP especially, is trade volume. So what you're describing is trade volume. You're like, hey, look, they need to be able to exchange $1 million, but they don't necessarily need to hold XRP the entire time they're exchanging that $1 million. But what you're not taking into account is how much trade volume needs to be in motion at any given moment. That trade volume is how much XCC that needs to, or how much XRP that needs to be demanded at any given moment. So if you're moving, and this is actually where you get into what the price valuation of XRP would be, or of any network really, because if you need to move $1 million or $100 million or $1 billion worth of an asset, and you need that trade volume, well, what would, and I think the best way I could sort of make it analogous would be, what would be the daily trade volume for oil be? And then translate that over to crypto. Well, whatever that number would be how much XDC in dollars demanded to move that value in that period of time. So yeah, if you're only looking at XRP for 1 second, it may not mean anything. But what if XRP is constantly in transit over the course of 24 hours, and there's, let's say, $10 billion in transit over the course of 24 hours? That money is constantly moving. It's not just moving and just sitting. It's moving, 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 and it needs to be used as a trade medium in order to move the actual units of value, whether it's assets, whether it's commodities, derivatives. So if you wanted to move $10 billion, if you wanted $100 billion in trade, or $100 million in trade volume, you're going to need $100 million of XDC value or XRP value constantly sitting at whatever valuation or whatever valuation the asset would be in order to facilitate that amount of trade. You see what I mean? And really, the total market cap is a leveraged value off of the total trade volume for a given period of time. So you'd really want to see what would be the 24-hour trade volume and what would necessarily need to be the activity to increase that trade volume and have it continuously, because that's honestly the big problem with a lot of crypto. Trade volume means nothing if you go from 1 million in trade volume to 50 million in trade volume back down to 1 million in trade volume. But it does mean something if you go from 1 million to 2 million to 5 million to 10. If you start making your way up in trade volume, that amount of asset that's demanded to facilitate that trade volume also increases. You see what I mean?
That's excellent. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So it's basically based on the volume.
Yeah, exactly.
At the time.
Exactly.
And so it is designed to
Sorry.
quite substantially move trillions.
And that's the thing, the beautiful thing that I think people miss. So this is almost like a meme at this point. So with XRP, people like to go, all the money, all this. But I'm like, no, it's more than that. What if all the money, all the debt, all the derivatives, all the commodities, all units of value, all the properties, every single thing that any form of value that can be exchanged between multiple parties in the entire planet. Now, don't get me wrong, this is going to be split up amongst a set of different networks based off the activity that resides on those different networks. But it's one of those things where all those different forms of value on the planet in all these different forms, especially, and this thing, we're not even talking about the ones that you don't even get to see. What about the form of values where people are able to cash out aspects of computing power? But we're not necessarily seeing that because we don't see wide markets for that. They're like really private markets. Or what about carbon credits? You don't necessarily see that amount of value being attributed because they're in these very siloed, private, illiquid markets. What happens when you bring all of these different assets onto a global public market where anybody can engage with each other, and now all of this is factored into trade volume? This is essentially one of the defining things that makes crypto so interesting, because it's not just there's all the money or whatever, it's that there's so many different units of value that can essentially contribute to trade volume on any of these different assets. And that's the thing, there are even new assets that don't even exist yet that will contribute trade volume. One example I like to give is you could have an application like with like on XCC or a smart contract that runs entirely autonomous, is able to generate revenue, and is able to issue that revenue to the form of a set of shareholders as a form of equities. So you can have fully autonomous equities for applications that don't even exist yet. So let's say someone put a social media platform, right? And the social media platform has a way for people to tip each other or people to monetize or whatever. And as they are able to engage in value trade, there's a fee associated. And those fees go to a set of shareholders, just like, shareholders may make money out of Facebook. Well, this application runs entirely autonomously. It's able to generate revenue. It's able to make money for the shareholders. And the shares itself are able to be worth something the same way that Facebook shares may be worth something. These apps don't even exist yet, but you can essentially create apps like that. And those shares are also being traded and being exchanged for value based off how much revenue they're able to generate. There's so many different things that can move value on chain and attribute value on chain that it's easy to point out money, commodities, these tangibles, but like when we start getting into like these weird intangibles, like say like carbon credits or these really weird illiquid markets, these things also count too.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I'm geeking out because I got goosebumps. I was like, yeah, it's all the, and then it reminded me of something you said earlier in the chat where it's perspective though, right? So, like, if someone thinks, oh, it's on Bitcoin or it's on XRP, even though XRP is stationed to do that, right? Like, it's positioning itself, meaning one of the biggest movers, and it'll be there once the banks start jumping on and the stability of it into the future. But it's also like the narrative, like you're saying, well, if like now everyone's the shiny new coin like Solana, right? Everyone's talking about Solana now. And what got me excited was that Corium, which was another one that can move value or allow XRP to talk to the Ethereum and the other networks, right? Or Polygon, more of the four or five bigger ones. Can XDC do that? Because I'm a holder of XDC too, because of you talking about it from a long time ago. Or is it totally different?
Repeat that again. I'm
sorry. I went off on a tangent. So, yeah. I guess the question is, in the beginning of the chat earlier, you had answered a question, or you were saying on the value of things, it's like a perspective, right? So, you were talking about some people might use Linux or Apple, or remember that example where you were saying you could use different things, or I think it had to do with wallets. Like, it doesn't matter which wallet you use. It's just, or describing your car, right? The wheels. And now, I got excited about XRP because it is talking about all the money, all the value, everything, because you can put all these things on there. They have the escrow account, which even you could do all kinds of crazy stuff with the escrow account. I guess it's similar to smart contracts, but I guess the question is, from then isn't it perspective, like who's to market first or who gets that narrative?
So
Right?
that
For the value of that of everything.
So there's two aspects of that. So there's encompassing the public attention around a given idea, and then there's the ability to like get there first, like actually like facilitate it first. I would say Bitcoin has encompassed that idea, but technically can't fulfill that that order. So
role,
you're sort
absolutely.
of exactly. So you're sort of stuck in this where and this thing that doesn't mean like someone could create a technology that does that right now and say, oh, this technology does exactly what you just said, but it hasn't captured that public attention yet, so people can't engage with it because they don't even know about it. So there's this element of being able, and really it comes down to what type of narratives are being, or narratives / ideologies. You see a lot of different narratives and a lot of different dreams and stories being peddled, but you also see a lot of different ideologies being encapsulated with that as well. And when it comes to mostly the story about what you believe is going to be utilized, is going to be the narrative, where the story of how or why someone would utilize tends to be like, ideology. Like people use crypto for freedom, even though like you could probably use crypto just to build interesting apps. But the freedom idea is just an ideological idea, where to building apps is just building apps. But when it comes to XRP, I think the thing that makes XRP unique is a few things, but it comes down to what it's technically capable of that's unique from all the other networks. So this is actually the funny example where before I was explaining like, oh, when you're explaining, your car, you wouldn't necessarily say, well, it has 4 wheels or whatever. But if you're going, wait, yes, this is a car, but this is an electric car. So I sort of need to explain that these components that make it an electric car are different from the fact that make it a regular car, but that doesn't necessarily make it super unique. It's the fact that it's electric that makes it unique. So me explaining the battery, me explaining the motors, I wouldn't normally explain a freaking, and not to say I wouldn't normally explain that for a electric car, but you need to illustrate why it's an electric car and why it's separate from those other components. And I think with XRP, it's the fact that the network's a DEX, and the fact that the network has an algorithm called rippling that allows you to route between different assets with the route between different assets to be able to maximize liquidity. So the biggest thing I find interesting about that is that's the competitive advantage it has. It doesn't need to get a better narrative over everybody else. No other technology has the entire network being a DEX and has, well, I guess you can technically say ZAO and maybe XLM due to the fact that a lot of the technologies are very similar. But the notion is that the majority of the other blockchain technologies do not have these components that XRP has. These are what makes it unique, and the activity that this can facilitate is uniquely different than these other type of technologies. So like, let's say with electric cars, now that I've described that we have batteries, we have these motors, we have whatever, well, now I can say, well, now what makes us different is we can now have fully self-driving cars. Look, we have an electric car, it's also self-driving. We also have an element where you can interact with it with your phone. There are things now, and the reason I say this is, when it comes to a traditional car, you don't need to describe the engine to separate it from any other traditional car, but you do need to describe the motor or battery just to illustrate that an electric car is an electric car, even though the electric car technically does similar things than the gas car or whatever. You see what I mean? And I think XRP is in a bit of a unique perspective in that regard. I think most other networks are mostly going to be talking about what specific activity that they provide on that network that's different. XRP has a very specific type of activity, but it's because of those network specs that make it unique in that way. No other network has those network specs. Therefore, no other network is going to be able to facilitate activity in the same way XRP does.
So we're still extremely early then, from what it sounds like.
I wouldn't even say that. No. So this is let me translate what that means when someone says we're early. What that means is there's an opportunity out there that someone hasn't encapsulated on to saturate the market with any of these tools or any of these technologies. That's what you're saying. There are plenty of people utilizing the technologies, but they're using them as back-end systems for their infrastructure to provide some service that their users have no conceptual understanding what creates that service in the first place. That's one of the biggest things I try to talk about with XDC is there are so many different businesses using XDC, but they're not broadcasting to the world that they're going to be using XDC for this or whatever. They have some sort of, they have some business, they have some sort of clientele, some sort of service they provide, and then they want to be able to use blockchain as a way to be able to provide that service for either cheaper, more efficient, be able to interact with other services, whatever, but they're not typically broadcasting it. Now, the culture around broadcasting the things that you're doing typically comes from this, it's almost like this consumer retail it's almost like the vaporware notion I said, that buy the story, sell the dream. It comes into that where people get so caught up into the dream or the idea of something that they don't actually get into the actual components of what are people doing with those things. And the funny thing is, everyone that are bought into a dream will talk about the dream, but everyone that's actually, it's almost like, not to sound like one of those like hustle culture porn guys or whatever, but they're like, the people that are actually grinding don't need to tell you they're grinding. Well, the people that are telling you they're grinding aren't actually. It's sort of like that, but not exactly, because it's not like people aren't working hard because they're broadcasting it. But what it means is, just because people aren't broadcasting it doesn't mean people aren't working hard. You just don't see it because they're trying to provide services in such a way to where their users are able to get the benefit, but they don't necessarily need to know let everybody know exactly how they're able to do that. Just in the same way that they don't broadcast what cloud stack they use, or they don't broadcast what type of Linux distro they use. No one cares. Now, don't get me wrong. When they're interacting with other businesses and other companies, they may compare notes and go, oh well, because this is a huge thing even in Web 2. I remember when I was working at my last firm, we moved from AWS to Azure because the majority of the people they engage with use Azure. So it's a lot easier to engage in that way. And it wasn't one of those things where it's like, oh, we need to broadcast to everyone we're using Azure now. It's like, oh no, well, now that our trade partners, the people that we work with, use Azure, it's actually easier for us to also use Azure and interact with them. So so from that standpoint, you may talk about what technologies you're using, but it's not one of those things where it needs to be broadcast to everybody because you only need to. Yeah. Oh, my bad. What was that? I think I got a little bit of feedback. Anywho, most of these businesses don't broadcast this. It's funny because I just put out a piece of news around XCC, around all the things that are happening, and it's the funniest thing is they are broadcasted, but because they're not so hype focused and they're sort of finance, technical, TradeFi, like very more formal document-ish, they're just not as exciting. But someone could just post a tweet saying to the moon with a bunch of freaking rockets, and then a picture of whatever, and people get all excited, and it's, oh my god, ah. So I think that's sort of the big thing where I do believe there's a lot of adoption happening right now. And when people say we're early, we're early, but like the best way I could describe it is imagine having smartphones and then trying to explain to somebody TikTok. But the only smartphone apps they see are like the Taser app and like Candy Crush and but they don't see like TikTok or Uber or very, very, very specific apps that facilitate a type of engagement because of the things they do see are very simple, very it's weird to describe, but that's the earliness that we're in. So it's not like people aren't building the Ubers out there. It's that we just haven't seen them be saturated yet. And part of that is because we don't have a lot of the technology is incredibly it's sort of this. A lot of the technology requires a technical foundation that is beyond what the average person is willing to engage with. If anybody here that's willing to set up a wallet knows how much of a pain in the ass it is, and do you think the average person is going to do that? Go through the process of setting up a wallet, never mind do anything else that you need to do in crypto? So I think the biggest thing is because there's a barrier.
Try buying XDC 2 years ago.
Yeah, literally, no, because there's so many barriers to entry, not just from regular people, but even from businesses and even from developers. There are not enough tools that allow people to be able to integrate into these technologies. We don't see the saturation yet. But it doesn't mean there's not adoption. There's adoption. There's just not saturation. The reason I say that is people say, oh, we're 3 years away. But I guarantee you, after one big app saturates the market, within 12 months, there will be 10 other big apps just like it. And now crypto will be defined by this new type of environment where there's these new unicorn million user apps that people are using. And these users aren't going to be crypto users either. That's the big thing. That's one of the defining factor. They're using applications that operate on crypto networks without actually having to be explicitly crypto users because the barrier to entry both for the business and for the user is too high.
And what you're talking about there is basically Web3, right? Is my understanding where the Web3 connects the average person that can just open up their phone and app with the cryptocurrency or the technology running in the background where you don't even see it.
Yeah, I guess you could. I think people use Web3 as a umbrella term for anything to do with crypto, but I think the best way to describe it is Web3, like we don't differentiate Web 1 and Web 2. We kind of just go, yeah, the internet was sort of in this rudimentary phase, and now we're able to have these more complex components like streaming, cloud, all these different things. I think blockchain is going to allow for more components to be added onto the internet in the same way. Like we went from dial-up to, like, we're live streaming right now. We are live. There was a time in the internet where that was not possible. And that's the thing. We're not just live streaming once. I'm streaming onto YouTube, but we're all also streaming onto Discord to talk to each other. So there are two parallel streams happening right now, but we wouldn't go, oh, that's the difference between Web 1 and Web 2. We would just go that the internet just evolved. And I think that's what Web 3 is I think people like to segregate Web 3 because of the ideological component, but Web 3 is just an evolution of the internet. I think mostly around value and money and the ability to be able to exchange value online without having to go through multiple intermediaries and being able to do it internationally as opposed to having one big entity in every big country and then giant freaking bridges to try to get different, like I said, I think the big meme now when it comes to finance is like 80% of the global trade goes through like the top 5 biggest banks right now. And that's the thing. The problem isn't that it goes through those biggest banks. It's that it's so inefficient that if you could do it better, you wouldn't necessarily have to go through them. You could just conduct whatever process it is in the most efficient way rather than having to go through all these different steps to facilitate that same process.
Yeah, this is friggin' awesome. Sorry, I'm geeking out on this.
No, I just have to really thank you. I have to really thank you. Like, so, no, seriously, like, I really have to thank you and really appreciate you coming on here. I've been trying to figure out, one, I want to make the streams more engaging, and I see people, they really like it when I monologue, but I'm like, I can't monologue for 3 hours. Like, I would like to be able to engage with people.
Yeah,
but when you bring up really good points, when you bring up really good points, really good ideas, and you start flushing out some of the things that are being talked about, it's like, boom, okay, there's something that we can really start hammering into. I think this is a really cool topic, and I love that you're very much like involved in how these processes work. So you're very much willing to engage with these topics. These are the things I'm trying to do more on my channel. Where I think there's a lot to be said about crypto, but I don't think many people are saying it because so many people are either A, confused, B, just blinded by I don't want to say blinded by greed, but just so blinded by the idea and these dreams and these stories. Or they're just confused because they got into crypto, they want to know something, but every time they go to reach out, they get even more confused. And then there's this notion of like, oh crap, like what do you do with that? Where someone's a bit confused and they know some things, but they don't know other things. And sometimes they engage with some people in this way and they engage with other people in this way. And I'm like, look, I think we can actually clear up a lot of things, but we have to have an actual conversation to do so. And look, that doesn't mean I'm right about everything. I actually am super insecure about the fact that I don't have like a sounding board to go off of. I may be feeling really confident about a certain idea, but and that's the thing, I actually, earlier when I was in a space, I was like that. I was like, wait a second, am I wrong about this? And I want to make sure so I can actually learn and grow from that. And they're like, well, no, you're not actually wrong, but what he meant here. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well, we're able to differentiate that he meant this in this regard, and I meant this in this regard, and we want to make sure that that we're clear about the conditions that are being laid out when we are talking about these different constructs that we're talking about. And at least for me, I like to be clear about things. So if I'm wrong, don't feel free to correct me. But it's one of those things where now that I'm corrected, I feel like I can grow off of that. And from my perspective, if I'm wrong and I'm trying to build something, it just won't build. So I don't mind being wrong, because presuming if I was and I didn't know, I wouldn't be able to make the thing. And now I have to deal with a bug. And if I was wrong before, I might as well learn that I'm wrong before I get to the bug sort of idea. That's like my mentality on things. But the biggest thing is I just want to have a nuanced conversation about these things. And that doesn't necessarily mean I know everything, but I do know a lot. I do want to share, and I do want to be able to engage with others that also want to do the same.
Can I chime in real quick?
How you doing? Crypto Navigator, how you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic, man. It's great to catch you on a live stream, to actually pick your brain. You're one of the most inspiring people in the space, and I really appreciate you taking time out for the community. I got a really good question. This is something I've been pondering on for a while now, since I've been in crypto, and it's been about 3 years for me. And the real world use case, like for the future, what we're at, not even adoption phase at this point, but I really see the major opportunities. I'm in sales currently right now. I've been in sales for many years. I've owned a few businesses, and to actually tokenize a business is the question I have. Like, let me give you a scenario. Like, I work at a furniture store. Like, everything in this entire building could literally be tokenized with a QR code. Some of the projects out there are doing like real-time tracking, reordering, and everything essentially could be on one transaction. So could you elaborate on what you envision that to be? So just take kind of like this scenario, and if you would please kind of give me a rundown of what you see how it's going to be.
See, I love that
and
question.
Or an idea how you could actually bring that to fruition to something like let's say not really I work for a major corporation, but they're a mom and pop, a separation of the franchise. So can you kind of elaborate on something like that?
I love how you painted this all out, because what you're describing is the micro element of being able to manage the accounting of different goods. What makes blockchain so powerful is being able to manage micro components on a macro by being able to exchange with each other. So you being able to tokenize everything in inventory means nothing if you're not able to engage with that inventory with the people that you typically engage with and the people that engage with you. This is why I like to use the example of like someone passing an asset from a supply chain application into a finance application into a marketplace application. That's the fundamental use case of tokenizing the thing, is so you can have your system operate a certain way, and then you can pass that unit of account from your system into another system. So for you, it may be something as simple as accounting, but for them, it may be proof that they've bought something and how are able to keep account of it. And now you're able to pass that unit of account from your system off into their system while simultaneously being able to keep account of what you have in your inventory. Now that's a very simple example. You can add more smart contracts and more services on top of this, but the number one reason why you'd want to tokenize is you'd want to be able to pass these different units of account to the people that you're engaging with, and then use that as a means, and use primarily either the blockchain or the cryptocurrency as a means of exchanging that value with either the cryptocurrency or like a stable coin or whatever. And ideally, it'd just be more of a frictionless process to move from one system into another while simultaneously being able to keep account of the objects in both systems and being able to exchange value between the two. So ideally, that micro is great, but the micro only means something if all the different parties it's able to connect to also is able to benefit off of the exchange of that asset. Are you guys familiar with the Metcalfe effect?
I'm not. I would love for you to elaborate on that.
Yeah. So all it is is
network effect.
Yeah. So or network effect. For every additional participant added to a given network, the total amount of value in that network goes up exponentially. And it just goes based off how many people you can engage with. So if I'm in a network with only 5 of us, then I only have, was that like 25 engagements, whatever the squared that engagement is? Well, if I have each additional person I add to that group, there's one more exponential of the amount of engagements I could have. So even though each person that's going up into the group increases linearly, the connections increase exponentially. So what ends up happening is, for you, having one person tokenize a single process with as many of the tokens you may have, fundamentally you may be able to use them as a unit of account, but you're able to get more value off of being able to tokenize them by being able to integrate those tokens with other applications with the people you engage with. And then ideally, these tokens can be passed into applications that you have nothing to do with. So if you're engaging with a mom and pop shop, let's say you're not even engaging with the mom and pop shop, you're engaging with like a supplier that supplies to a bunch of mom and pop shops. Well, they may be the ones keeping track of all these different tokens that you've kept in your own accounting system, and then by the time the mom and pop shop gets it, they're the ones buying the tokens to keep track in their accounting system. And now they're holding tokens that were generated by you, even though they had nothing to do with you and you had nothing to do with them, even though your units of account are able to be integrated into their applications.
Nice. Yeah, I'm wondering how soon that this could actually be implemented, like for essentially the retail, because I mean we're not talking like wholesale at this point. Major corporations actually get on the blockchain as of late, but I do see this happening pretty fast. And I'm wondering, is there like boots on the ground actually getting companies involved and actually companies coming to the table and actually trying to bring this to fruition? Quincy, do you have anything you can elaborate on?
Yeah, so
I don't know if it's NDAs or involved or anything, but anything that you know of?
I do have NDAs, but I am incredibly general about the people I talk about, so technically I could be talking about anybody, and I am talking about everybody, because when I see one person doing it, I actually end up seeing quite a few other people doing it. And what ends up happening is, so here's what's happening. Because there's that micro and that macro element, you can only get so much value from you individually tokenizing and utilizing the blockchain in this capacity. Like I said, you can at the very base use it as an accounting system, very base, cheap accounting system, and boom, that's the very base element you can engage with. What I see for people to get from that micro to the macro is, first, they will build an accounting system, right? And I see this with Zinfin, with TradeFinex, with TradeTech. They'll build an accounting system, and it'll run on the blockchain or whatever, what other assets or whatever it may be. And then they'll take already trade partners they may have, and they may say, hey, utilize the blockchain to be able to engage with us because it's cheaper for both of us to do so. So then what they do is they bring on their immediate trade partners that they're already engaging with, and they allow them to operate on these chains, presumingly that it's cheaper and more effective and all of that. Well, with that, it sort of becomes like a slow growth because it's like, well, if we're able to effectively run cheaper on these networks or able to run more efficiently or engage with more people on these networks, one, you're able to engage with whoever's on that network. So any participants you wouldn't have had access to, you now have access to. But two, as you try to get more and more people to interact with your technology, you may be able to get them operating on XDC or any of these blockchain networks to interact with your technology. So if you issued an asset on the blockchain, in order for them to interact with those assets, they may need to operate on chain. Now, the idea, like, this is an incredibly slow process. This is like people sitting down in like meetings going, hey, is it possible? Not so much of you changing your technology stack, because sometimes they'll even custody and like have like different custodian elements for this too. But it's like a face-to-face thing of talking about changing some aspect of your technology to allow for that same element of trade you already have to persist in a new way. And this is no different than, like I said, like my previous company, we're moving from AWS to Azure. This is fundamentally no different than that, but it's a very slow process because it's a face-to-face one. But like I said, with the Metcalfe effect, every additional partner that comes on to any one of those, so for every additional person that gets invited on by any of the people that were already on the network, they now have engagement. They now can engage with everybody that's already on the network. So you're not moving to XDC just to engage with your one trade partner. You're moving to XDC because you can engage with that trade partner and that trade partner's trade partners and anybody else on the network. So it's one of those things where you don't just get a value proposition just by moving over because your trade partner is moving over. You get an increased value proposition because there's more people that you can engage with now that you wouldn't have been able to before, and the more people that engage, the more people that more people can engage with, that Metcalfe element, that network effect. More and more people, more and more value, more and more connections, and that just keeps stacking on top of itself.
Awesome explanation, man. I definitely see the future of where this is going, and definitely want to be a part of that. Not just for the profits, but also for the adoption of this technology and making things a lot more simplified for the everyday average business owner. I see lots of opportunity in my area. I see slow growth as far as the learning curve for these people, but there's going to be obviously people like myself and you and others that are going to be the boots on the ground, so to speak. And I mean, that's kind of really what I was getting and alluding to is how do I need to get with you, Quincy, somehow. I would like to be that boots on the ground for my area, Florida, because
I'm from
I
Florida.
see so much.
Where in Florida are you?
Oh, okay. I'm in Melbourne Beach.
Oh, cool. I lived in Fort Lauderdale. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, but I ended up going to high school in St. Augustine.
Okay.
Are you
okay.
still in Phoenix or Tempe area?
Yeah, I went to school in at ASU, so yeah, I'm still in AZ.
Yeah. Nice. On that, I wanted to jump in on Crypto Navigator when he asked for the vision of everything. It just brought an idea of what I had explained to some people what the tokenization could do, and you brought it to the Metcalfe's law of like the network effect, but I described it as, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the way I look at it. Like if you could tokenize every tree in the forest, right? And you put a QR code on it, whatever. When that person manufactures that tree, and then you buy that piece of furniture that's in Crypto Navigator's shop, and you scan that, you'll know like exactly where that tree came from, who shipped it, how it was stored. So if there's some mold or something issue, like in Florida, it reminds me, in Florida, I was a home builder, and all this drywall they put formaldehyde in it, and people started getting sick because all these builders bought this cheap drywall from China back in the 80s, I think I remember, and they were all getting sick. You could actually trace, hey, this sheetrock came from this supplier that got this, or like an E. coli breakout on lettuce, right? It came from this farm, and it passed through here. And that's my understanding of everything.
So what you're getting into, so it's actually so funny too, because there's a very people like to emphasize this, but they subtly miss why this is. So we talk about smart contracts, we talk about automation, decentralization, tokenization, all of this thing, right? But the entire blockchain is a log. The mere fact that is a blockchain, each block is a log, each transaction is a log. So by de facto, anything that exchanges on that network, just like the assets themselves or the cryptocurrencies, you also get a log of everything involved too. So like I said, if you listed a commodity or you listed an asset or whatever, or anything that needs to be tracked, you by de facto get that log. Now you can make that log a lot more rich by being able to pass that asset from contract A to contract B, and contract A may have some parameters, contract B may have some parameters, but you still get the log of the transaction. And if you're able, and I think this gets into being able to verify and being able to identify people, but if you're able to get a log of the transactions and you're able to get a log and be able to verify the identities, and not even just the identities, I don't even need to know who you are. I just need to know that you are who you say you are. It's weird to describe it as. So I just it's one of those things where I may not know exactly that I have this information about you, but I know I'm dealing with who I'm dealing with. And this could partially be delegated through trust. I trust this entity to say that you are who you are. This may be delegated through like a government organization, whatever. But if I can just basically say, hey, I know who I'm engaging with, or I know I'm not engaging with someone who's fraudulent, or I have some level of trust of who I'm able to engage with, each single time you engage with somebody or each single time you pass an asset, you automatically get a log. So if you're able to, like I said, if you're able to keep track, you can keep track of both the movement of the asset and who kept track of the asset.
Nice. So let me ask you, so currently, as of late with XDC, so essentially I could tokenize, let's say, one item. Not only could the sale of that item go on that one transaction, but the reorder of the same item to reorder the one that was just sold could potentially be on one transaction. Is that correct?
So repeat that again?
So, I mean, let's look at blockchain as a whole. I know there is a token, I'm not going to mention it because, there's a token that, so an order could be placed. So essentially that order could be sold, and then once it's sold, a reorder is actually placed immediately after that, all in one transaction.
So
all in one crypto transaction.
So what you're describing is, so this would be probably something integrated into the smart contract. So let's say you had an order, right? And let's say it was a parameter that you put in for this many orders. And correct me if I'm wrong, and would this be in one transaction, or would this be like you're making the same order again, but the first order
No,
is wrong?
correct, one transaction, because once there's a sale, there essentially needs to be a resale to reorder that product. And
okay, so what you would do, so this is a perfect example. You'd probably have two different tokens. One token be the original sale, and one token being the resale, and then each token would be representing that sale in a sense, and basically be kept track of accordingly.
Okay. Yeah, so that's the logistics I don't know. That's what I'm picking your brain.
So when it comes for that. When it comes into like really specifics like that, it depends on exactly, like this almost gets into like if you were to build a smart contract in a certain way, how would you build it? And there's almost a notion of, well, there's almost an infinite amount of ways you could do it, and it's sort of like arbitrary, like which ways you choose to. It's just more of what's more like what is specific to you. Like I don't know exactly what you're using it for, how you're using it, what it's interacting with, and all that. I only say this because this is essentially the dilemma of my like day job. I know so much about the software, I know so much about the technology, I know even what you want to implement in code, but I don't know your process. I don't know your business. I don't know your clients. I don't know any of that. So being more familiar can give me an understanding, an idea on where you can point your attention and move in a certain direction, but I don't have the information that would be needed to be able to outline that clearly enough for you to be able to execute on, unless I was like questioning you on how your business works.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's just all, at this point, speculation on how it's going to go as far as smart contract. Each individual company will be ideally integrating what their needs and wants are as far as that smart contract goes. But it's super exciting to me to be like here at the beginning stages of this, where we're starting to actually see this movement and people actually wanting to finally do this. So I'm super excited about it. I'd like to somehow be a part of the integration part of it, not just, like I said, just gaining profits. I really see a whole nother avenue, and then people that are waiting for this adoption to happen, this could be another potentially, a second income for people, because I mean, let's face it, this could take a little bit of time for, full adoption 2030. And in the meantime, give people something that they love to do, which I love being in the blockchain space. I spend probably 4 to 6 hours a day learning whatever I can. And, being able to do something that you love would be just a great addition. So thanks for letting me share that today, Quincy.
No problems, man. No problem. Very much appreciate your participation, man. No, it was amazing.
Yeah, I like you doing these spaces. It's really exciting to see you back up in YouTube land, and I don't do much at Discord, but I'm definitely gonna look for me you're on X, obviously, so I'm gonna follow you on X if you would mind following me back. I'd like to collaborate with you a little bit more. I've got some ideas. I don't want to take up too much of the time on the stream.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you go on X right now, just at me. Just say, "Great talking with you" on Discord, and I'll see that and I'll add you.
Roger that. I will do that. I think I'm already following you, but I'll at you right now.
Sweet. Yeah,
and
it's hard for me to find people, but if you at me, I usually see all the ads. So.
What I find interesting, you mentioned earlier too about these late night meetings. Just where you'd hop on, you talk to David Schwartz, like at 10 p.m. at night, but it was like, grab a whiskey and a cigar and like have a chill out room, like once a month or once a week at a certain time in the evening. I like getting into the, I don't know, call it supernatural, but the theology of it. Of crypto and where it can go, and just I don't know. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I don't know if everyone else. I'm off
sorry.
the YouTube channel. I'm still in the Discord, so I can't see the reactions right now.
There's
of the group. If we're boring them out, or they're excited.
No, the chat is very much like it's basically fighting over how badly Ethereum's gonna get shredded or something. Like there are all these XEC. There's very much hype XEC guys are bickering it over what's gonna happen right now. So they're not even worried about this, or at least the majority of the chat's not worried about this.
Cool.
But yeah, so
I'm gonna have to.
Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to run to work because it's like you said in the middle of the day. That's why I was saying it'd be nice to continue some type of group like this. Now, you popped up on. I've been following you for a couple years now. Have you been not active on YouTube, or is it just the logarithms now having you pop up on my YouTube because
I haven't been
you did live, or is it your first live in like a year or so? Or
I haven't been super active, but I made a few videos in October, and it was chill. But the thing about videos is it takes so much time. I actually work on a bunch of different things, and the editing for videos just takes so much time, and it just cuts into that. So I was like, I might as well just live stream and just get the good chunk of the content while I'm live streaming, and not even too worried about not even worried about the. Plus, we get engagements like this. I'm able to go on Twitter Spaces. I feel like I'm able to get a lot more engagement. That's a lot more like interesting and more valuable than just me sort of monologuing for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And not to mention, people like you could just like hop in, hop out. You can hop into a stream, hop. Like it's one of those things where with a stream, I could be talking about so many different topics. So it's almost like one stream. The stream's 2 hours long. That would have, for 2 hours worth of content on YouTube, would have been like who knows how many videos. Yeah, but that's the thing, like how many topics have we talked about? We talked about at least a dozen topics, and I've spent at least 5 to 10 minutes on each topic. So like I feel like you get a lot more out of the live streams.
Yeah, I agree. I do StreamYard. I'm with a bunch of groups actually. I actually have my own channel that we do on Wednesday nights. We got most of the moderators for a lot of the crypto YouTube channels. We all kind of joined together on one stream about 3 years ago. I'm sure you know Chip and Jeff from On the Chain. You've probably been on their channel, or yeah, we had kind of originated a lot from them, and another guy called Berserker, his channel, and we now have like probably about an active 75 people in the group that are either moderators for other YouTube channels or have been in this space, a bunch of OGs, and it gets really, really heated. There's so many topics you can go over in a day, And Quincy, there's like 10 of us on a stream at one time, and trying to everybody get a share in's pretty fun. But I think you'd probably dig that, the collaboration with all the other YouTubers. I'll have to, once I finally get your DM, I don't know, for some reason you're not popping up in here, but I'm definitely going to DM you here.
Yeah, DM me.
But so you plan on doing this like once a week now, or you got the time?
This is my third stream this week. I've been doing it almost daily now. So here's my plan. This is my whole plan. So I suck at schedules. Absolutely suck. And there's so many cool things happening all the time. So I figured, I'm like, why am I focusing so much time trying to fix this specific schedule? Yes, because what ends up happening is, I'm like, okay, I'll do this on this schedule, but then something interesting will happen off the schedule. So then I'm like trying to jump into the interesting things just to release the video on the schedule. And I'm like, look, I'll just live stream as interesting things happen. Like literally, the reason why I was gonna start live streaming later on today, but the reason why I even started live streaming now was because I literally had this like 30 minute conversation on Discord, no live stream, with my moderator, just about like a bunch of stuff in crypto. And as I'm on the freaking talk with him, I'm like, dude, this would be so great to be on the live stream. He's just like, dude, do it, just start the live stream. So I'm like, yeah, honestly, we'll just start it and hop into space, chat with some people. As soon as I get going, we're good. And I noticed a lot that I get a lot more feedback on the live streams in general, sort of like how we are now. So for the most part, I'm not gonna be streaming every day, but I want to be streaming at least 4 to 5 days out of the week, presuming there are interesting things happening. There are some days where it's just dead, but sometimes I'll look and there's like a zillion different things, a ton of spaces on Twitter, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different spaces. I know if I hop into any of them, people will be like, oh, hey Quincy, what's up? We could talk about this. So I'm like, oh, that'd be so cool. But if I'm like, oh, I'm gonna schedule a video on Monday, then I might do a video on Friday just to get a better video on Saturday, and then I'll go, okay, I'll put the Saturday video on Monday, and then I'll get a good video on Tuesday, so then I'll put the video on Wednesday, and then I'll never do the Saturday video. And then I'm like, I'm doing all this editing and all this video crap, and I don't even get a chance to use them because I'm trying to fit to the schedule, but then I find good content that doesn't fit in that. So I'm like, look, I'm just gonna live stream it. It's just easier across the board to just live stream things as they happen. I talked to a lot of different crypto projects. I talked to a lot of different startups, a lot of them on Discord. So I'm like, hey, look, if we're gonna have a conversation and the conversation is open enough to be able to like talk publicly, because it's not like we're like, I'm not signing an NDA with these guys. We're just talking about what's cool about their project, what they may do on XCC. I'm like, why don't we just have these conversations publicly? You get a chance to be able to talk about your project in front of a bunch of people, and I get a chance to be able to talk about very interesting things as they happen. And I think I've had these Zoom calls, Google Hangouts. I've had a lot of these. Like I have at least like almost one a day. But I'm like, if it's and don't get me wrong, that's not like all of them I'm gonna put on the live stream. But if I can put at least some of the more interesting public ones on the live stream, I think people will get a good insight into what adoption looks like from just things as they happen. I think a cool example is like I like talking to the Expector guys, or I like talking to Jake Claver about like he deals with like private equity and investing and what it means to be like an institutional investor in crypto and stuff like that. These are really cool combos that I just want to make more public, as well as interacting with the community.
Yeah, that's awesome. Also, just how some little bit of diversification into some LLCs and some trusts and things like that. Some bringing up some ideas like that would be helpful to especially the new people in the space that may or may not have just got in within the last year and just only know how to self-custody their crypto, and that's it. Just giving them some really good insight in how to preserve their generational wealth some of these people are going to make, and also de-risk. I mean, I talked a lot about it on my channel this past Wednesday. My main focus of the whole night was de-risking. A lot of people aren't doing that, and they're really setting themselves up for failure in the future. And at the point to where some of us are going to be taking some profits, are you actively engaging on some of the spaces where you're looking to take some profits? Are you setting yourself up for a potential another KYC event where your account is not actively active, and it may take you a few days to get re-KYC'd, and making sure you're active? Some of those things is what I decided to point out, and it really makes sense, but a lot of people aren't really focusing on it. They think, oh, I haven't done a transaction in 6 months and I'm just going to be fine. But no, you need to be actively on an exchange and actively doing some trading and moving something and selling something. just so that you don't have any issues if you do want to take some profit. So just kind of wanted to bring that up as something that I pointed out.
Yeah, actually, it's cool talking to a lot of people that are in that too, because like Jake, for instance, he talks about it like from a really sophisticated standpoint. So like, there's the notion of taking profits, but then he's like, then what? What do you do if you essentially take profits and you have a little bit of wealth? What do you do with it? So he'll get into wealth management. He'll get into what do you do in terms of diversification. He'll get into a lot of the traditional boring stuff, but you can't talk about like, oh, profiting in crypto and then not talk about what you're going to do with it after. And I actually like that a lot about him because he actually talks a lot like a financial advisor, but he does it through the lens of crypto because a lot of financial advisors don't really know anything about crypto. So he's like, hey, look, if you're interested in other cryptocurrencies and you're interested in all these other things, well, hey, look, you just made it a bit of a profit. Maybe you want to offset a bit of your risk. Maybe you want to get into gold. Maybe you want to get into silver. Maybe you want to get in this. Maybe you want to be able to pay off your debts. Maybe it gets into very tangible things, but in the sense through the lens of how people would do it with their crypto. Because they'll also talk about, okay, well, now that you've been able to profit, you want to make sure you offset your risk. So maybe you're still interested in cryptocurrencies, but hey, maybe you want to be able to, find something more sustainable, find bonds, find whatever. I mean, he'll list a zillion more things than I could list. But I love that that we can have that type of engagement because I feel like the space needs it. The space needs more than just another moon boy or even another developer. We need more perspectives of people that actively work in the space and do different things and share those perspectives. So we don't necessarily get so skewed down one line of thinking. We can honestly see, like I said, like I deal with development, but like, what are you going to do if you do make some money in crypto? Like, it's good to have somebody that talks about like wealth management in that regard. Like that's a huge important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I named myself the Crypto Navigator because I mean, I'm not just hyper focused on any particular coins, or I'm not a maxi on any coin. I look at the whole chain, all that's really available to us, and really try to see what's actually worthwhile in spending the time, and essentially what's going to actually be here in the future and what makes sense, and try to educate people on what I've learned throughout the day. I mean, I scan through probably about 5 or 6, maybe 10 videos a day, pick at little nuggets here and there. You always get something from somebody, essentially, if they're they've been in the space for a while and they like sharing their knowledge. And we're a collective in this space. We're all brought here for a reason, in my opinion. Out of so many millions of people in the world, and we're just a very small percentage of the entire population. I believe we're chosen to be here, just especially this early. And then I mean, your background is extensive, Quincy, and you're a pretty young guy compared to me, but I mean, the knowledge that you've obtained is just incredible, and what you have to share is very valuable. And for you to come on and take your time and share with the community, that means a lot, man. You're going to be blessed for doing that, my friend. And
I really appreciate
you're going to
that. Thank
encourage
you.
other people such as myself and many other people in the space to share their skills and their knowledge and their abilities that we all have. And that's what we're really called to do. We're all called to share our skills, and iron sharpens iron, so to speak.
No, that's a good way to put it. I really like that. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah. So I sent you at Coins Club Quincy. Is that the one you're using?
That is not my like X account. My X account is it should be Coin Club Quincy, not Coins Club. That's probably
Coin. Yes.
Yeah.
It's Coin
I only
Club
say that because
Quincy.
there's a lot of people that it'll be like Coins Club or Coin Club.
Yes.
They'll change like 1 or 2 letters or something. So yeah, you got to be a little careful. One way it's me that they can't fake is all the other big like crypto, or not big crypto, but like big XRP XCC people follow me. So you'll see David Schwartz, you'll see Zach Rector, you'll see Mr. Intuitive, you'll see Brad Kimes. They'll all follow me, and they don't follow the fake account. So that's usually, if you're questioning, just see that if those other and usually people in the space follow those other accounts. So it'll say like, oh, this this person's also following like me or something or whatever. But yeah, that just, you got to be a little careful.
Yeah, no, you're right. I check that all the time, and it's Coin Club Quincy, no S's.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
You're good.
I sent you a DM though.
Yeah, I've been trying to send a DM, and I don't know how to do it on X.
I have my DMs. I have my DMs shut off because when I first blew up, my my DMs gotten just destroyed. Actually, if you do want to DM me, you can just find me on LinkedIn. Technically, anybody can DM me on LinkedIn, but because it's LinkedIn, only professionals DM me. So yeah, you can always just DM me on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Well,
I
that's
just
so
I only
funny. I
post
haven't
it.
logged into LinkedIn in like 2 years, but since I got out of finance, yeah, I gotta fire that back up. Kind of like what um, the other guy on this stream is saying about get back into your accounts and make sure they're active, make sure you're able to move stuff. I had something happen with Coinbase, and they're held my money for a week to verify something, and I missed out on a bunch of trades. They're like, "Ah, you got to be kidding me," because I'm using Mexi and different, KuCoin. I got KYC'd on it. I can't, it was a nightmare. Finally got back in, was able to pull my stuff off, and just all that technical stuff that I'm a newbie, but I got into it last bull run right towards the top. So, but I've stuck it out and I dollar cost averaged in. So I'm positive on Bitcoin and still waiting for my XRP to come back up, but I'm about average 70 cents on XRP. So I'm right there. XDC, I'm positive, which is nice.
If you guys don't mind, I was actually thinking about hopping in a space. So is it cool if I end this right here? Or I might hop back onto Discord again, but I see the spaces is getting a little zesty.
Roger that. Appreciate you having us on.
No, appreciate you guys coming on. And don't get me wrong, this is gonna be an ongoing thing. So if you guys tune into the spaces, yeah, there will be other times where I'll invite people on too. So this will be an ongoing thing.
Do you have your own Discord channel? Or is that...
yes. You guys are in it right now technically, but you're in the guest portion. Let me see if I can. I tried to put it in the chat, but it wouldn't. Here, I'm gonna put it in the chat again in the stream chat. So if you go to the stream and look in the chat, it said it was. Hold on. Yeah, it said it was. Like there was an issue before. I wasn't sure what the deal was, but see if you can join. I know people are using it because when I first started up the channel, there were like 30 people. Now there's almost 100. So I know it works. I just don't know why.
In the Discord? Nice.
Yeah, in the Discord.
Okay.
I'll have to figure out how to try to save it. I don't use Discord very often, but I'll definitely try to save it. Yeah, you'll see me around the spaces a lot, Quincy. I'm in a bunch of the channels. I'm a moderator for currently 5 channels right now, and I currently have my own. And I do a Sunday morning, XRP bags.
Oh yeah, XRP bags. Yeah.
He does the extra bullish hour. I'll jump on his stream, and he Berserker. I'm sure you know Crypto Tales. He's another rapper in the space, and a guy named Fuma Boy, myself, and a few others are in a stream together. And that's on. So we do Sunday on Bags' channel, and then
literally hit me up whenever. Literally. And if I'm streaming, definitely hit me up. Like if you're in the Discord and you're doing something else with somebody else and you see me streaming, just drop in the Discord and be like, "Yo, Quincy, you want to join us over here?" I'm 100% down always. So yeah.
Well, you'll enjoy it, my friend. Yes, you'll bring some insight, and you'll get some insight yourself, because there's some very very knowledgeable people in the space that jump in that chat. So I'll definitely hit you up.
Awesome.
All right, guys. Take it easy.
All right.
Nice
All right, Quincy. Thanks for having us on.
All right. Yeah. So let me hop in the spaces again real quick. I saw Roma hopped into the general space as soon as I hopped out. Funny enough. Yo, Roma and Bobby, I love your enthusiasm. You guys are super cool. Just try not to blow up the chat too much. What ends up happening is I see a lot of your engagements back and forth, but if somebody asks a question, one, I don't get a chance to read all of the chats because there's so many. So either I have to start scrolling by to find a good question, or it becomes hard to find like good questions. And usually I try to be proactive, but if there's too much, I just end up missing it. So yeah, that's basically it. You guys are chill for the most part. Just relax a little bit. Let's hop on these X spaces. But yeah, what do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of the whole notion of me bringing on community members in Discord? I think it's super fun. I think it's super cool. So there's 2 aspects of it actually. I actually got to go back to my other Discord. So there's 2 layers of it. So I have my general Discord for my YouTube channel, and that's what they were in terms of being able to engage with me and being able to talk on chat and all of that. We'll get more into the rules if you join the Discord, because there's like a bunch of rules, like no trolling, all that stuff. But I also have a separate Discord for other startups and other projects that I see building things, and we would actually just hop on there whenever, and just talk about stuff. But whenever I'm on stream, whenever I'm also in it's called like the Founders Society Discord, but I just know a bunch of other people in the space that are either developers, project managers, founders, own media, startups, companies, whatever, and we chat all the time. So whenever I'm on stream, at any given point, any number of different startup founders or developers I know might hop into the Founders Society chat and also hop onto the stream. I want to be able to share those experiences on stream, and I've sort of already been doing them on Discord. So just like I talked to the community, we'll be talking with a lot of other projects as well. Oh, dang, Ginfinity's on? Okay, we're going to go in Ginfinity first.
What they mean, what they are. Yeah, and then we'll kind of open the floor, and we'll probably wrap it up. It's going to take a little while, obviously. But Andy, H-Bar to the Moon, if you could tell us about Citadel, maybe give us a little story around that and tell us what utility Citadel wallet is going to bring to the Hedera ecosystem.
Absolutely, Ryan. I'm really excited to talk about Citadel Wallet, the project I've been working on for a little more than a year, and finally, hopefully, bring the product to market early next year. That's the plan. It's looking really good with the way everything has been going. It's a hardware wallet product. It's native to Hedera network. It's the reason we decided to make it Hedera native to start with is because obviously I'm a huge supporter and believer in Hedera network, and I've done a lot of I've spent a lot of time in researching the technology and other aspects of this network that differentiate itself from anything else out there. Obviously, technology is second to none. The scalability, speed, cost efficiency, the economic model of sending transactions that are, the fees are pegged to US dollar and don't fluctuate with H-bar price.
All right, their stream is pretty cool. They actually do a lot of streams with H-bar, VeChain, even XDC, and some XRP people too as well. Super cool with the Ginfinity guys, both Valor and King Solomon. I hope they could be some that could hop in the Discord as well too. They talk about a lot of cool stuff. They run a media company called Ginfinity, and they'll interview people in the space and report on things that are going on. They tend to like to focus on the projects that are building things, and then allowing those projects to elaborate on what they're building. And it seems like they've got a little HMIS bash going on here, so they've got a little thing going on around H-bar, but they also do it for other networks too, and they're like super inclusive. So even if they're doing an H-bar thing or a VeChain thing, usually when I hop in, they usually give me a little bit of time to just talk about whatever I'm up to. Usually if it's not XCC focused, it's just like crypto related, whatever, because they're really focused on building, so it's pretty cool.
Supply's been moving back up again, been pretty strong. So, and it's with the XDC network.
So is that Mikkel?
All right, we have a Zinfin expert.
Hey, all I heard was XDC network. I literally just hopped in. I heard XDC network. I'm like, oh, all right. Well, I think I have a few things to say. Presuming, what are you guys talking about?
Well, we're honing Cool's his life skills over here. He said that the XDC network owns 5 billion XRP, which we found out he meant the R3 Corda deal. Could be Cardova, could be Cardano, but I think it's Corda. We're just getting the facts straight over here, Quincy.
So wait, what was the deal?
And I've been advising people to accumulate as much XRP as possible.
You gotta say nothing.
Can I ask a question afterwards?
That's advice.
What's the question?
Sure, Meta.
What's the question?
Thank you so much. I'm gonna start speaking right now.
Meta, do you have something to say?
Guys, come on.
My biggest advice was Flare Network, because Flare, the compound interest each month.
So that is financial advice then.
I would personally say for myself, For myself, for investing, Fly is great, but Flare Network is probably better, and that's for myself.
Because he said that
and I
wasn't
do that on Bifrost.
financial advice, so I just wanted, but that is then, right? You just said it. Can you repeat it?
It's for myself. I found it's good for Flare Network. Flare Network.
All right, everybody's getting muted. We're going to move off the topic of financial advice. All right, there's no reason to get people nervous over nonsense. Nobody here is giving financial advice. If anyone's listening to Saul, me, Scams, Meta, Mickle, Quincy, or Cool, you got serious issues, turn on Bloomberg, turn on CNBC, turn on Jim Cramer. Okay, let's all relax. Nobody get nervous. Nobody's got liability insurance. Let's carry on. Meta, ask your question.
I do have indemnity insurance.
Okay, great. I know who to sue.
Okay, so when the CEO of R3 spoke that they don't need to use blockchain and there are distributed ledger technology, they already have distributed ledger technology, they don't have to use blockchain, but then they go about saying that they're going to use XDC or something, in the news about R3 partnering with XDC somehow. So, I mean, how do you take that? Like, what does he mean?
Quincy, you've seen the that statement he made about XRP and Doge?
Okay. Explain the XRP and Doge statement, and is there supposed to be like some partnership with R3 that's supposed to happen?
No,
or?
So I'll lay down the premise for Quincy of what happened the other day with Mr. Rudder.
Mr. Rudder just said that it concerned him that people had their savings in things like XRP and Doge, and that created a FUD storm in the XRP community. Is that what you're talking about, Mr. I?
Yes, of course.
And he said that we don't have to use, there's no need for blockchain when they have distributed ledger technology.
He said they don't use blocks because blocks are inefficient.
Is that blockchain?
All right, Quincy's got enough info to comment.
So I guess, at least from my perspective, everything he's saying, it just seems coming from the notion that there are DLT technologies that can be used, but people aren't excited about them. So people seem to focus on the notion of blockchain. And I think what he's probably referencing is probably like Hyperledger, probably Corda maybe a little bit, or maybe some other technologies that use DLT, but not necessarily blocks per se. But that just seems like a criticism of like blockchain per se. Maybe they included XRP and Doge, and that triggered people. But it seems like the notion seems to be that there are other technologies that can facilitate these decentralized services, and they don't necessarily have to be blockchains. And then the notion that their blockchains are, and that's actually like been a long time criticism of blockchains, is that like whether it's scaling or whether it's like all these different things. So I don't necessarily see it's a bad thing. I think people just get scared because they're like, oh, XRP got compared to Doge, means XRP is as worthless as Doge. Well, they may just be going, well, from their perspective, they may not even care about either one. They were just listing, tokens out there. Y'all just happen to be the ones to get hit.
It is interesting though, because R3 reportedly owns over 1 billion XRP, or did at one point. It's just interesting that he would choose that one.
I mean, have you ever considered that he just never really cared? Like there are plenty of people that genuinely just don't really care. They're just like, this is whatever they know, whatever the business that they've been following or whatever business they've been running forever. They may see some components of blockchain or some components of DLT, but they just may not care about the majority of it. So they'll just lump it all together. Like this is like would you be just as mad if they compared XRP and Bitcoin? They just go, they're both cryptocurrencies. Yeah, you can go into what makes them different and all that, but I think that's just
he actually did badmouth Bitcoin too. To your point.
Well,
you're probably just constantly hearing about XRP from different people asking him the question because of that previous partnership, and that's probably why it was the one on the top of his mind.
And also Hyperledger.
But hang on, the Corda settler is a R3 production, correct?
Yeah, it's not. It's so R3 created Corda. Corda is an open source software, and I believe Corda Settler is a part of that open source software. Just like Ripple created XRP, Zinfin created XDC, these are open source software that people can utilize. So yeah, Corda, R3 may be utilizing a bit of Corda and Corda Settler, but you got to remember, like anybody can use Corda and Corda Settler.
I see. But then the first settlement mechanism on Corda was XRP. Is that also true?
No. So I believe the reason why people associate XRP with being the first asset on Corda Settler was because R3 put out a video demonstrating Corda Settler, and as an example, they used XRP. That was it. It was the example in the video about Corda Settler.
Can I ask another question, sir?
What's up?
Can you tell me the difference between a coin and a token?
I think it's semantics. I don't think unless you're going to start going into like what are you describing, I think it's semantics.
Just real
Some
quick.
people don't think it's that way.
And why is that? Okay, if people don't think it's that way, then describe the things that people think, and then we can get into what those things are, rather than just take two different terms and then presume that I think the same things that other people think. I believe it seems to be semantics because people use them interchangeably. But if you believe that there are underlying concepts that are different, please explain those concepts, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, because people take things literally sometimes, but I believe it's semantics as well.
Going back real quick.
I think what I heard is that, like, I mean, there's obviously no actual definition here, but what I heard is like a coin is the layer one asset on an ecosystem, while a token is an issued asset on a layer one. Now, there's obviously no specific definitions, but that's how I've heard it.
I would actually agree with that. And the reason why I would agree with that, I wouldn't necessarily use it in that way. But the main thing is there very much is a separation between the native crypto asset that resides on the layer one network and things that reside on it. These are two fundamentally different things. So yeah, if you want to put it that way, I would actually sort of agree because you're describing two entirely separate things. What makes a layer one token is different than what makes an issued asset. Even though from the perspective of your wallet, you just may see that there's an asset in your wallet. So, but at that point, you're just describing the layer one versus assets on layer ones.
Quincy,
this is amazing.
Quincy, none of what you said about R3 and Corda is true, and it's not the actual timeline of R3.
All right, before you guys proceed, I just want Quincy and Money to discuss this as adults.
Well, no.
Go.
Just explain, man. Like I'm totally fine with being wrong. I don't know everything about everything. From my understanding, that's what I've essentially come across. But if that's not the case, please explain.
R3's first partner in this whole ecosystem in distributed ledger was Ripple, right? If you go back into the history, right, R3 and Ripple had an agreement, and they ended up in a lawsuit, right? So the first settlement currency with R3 that was being tested was actually DLT through Ripple.
It was XRP.
Later, it was XRP. Well, yeah,
you can just say it was XRP. I put the proof above.
So that's great. So, but I believe they started with the DLT and then they went to the XRP. So they actually started with the software.
XRP was the first settlement mechanism. December 5th, 2018.
That is great. Thank you for the clarification, because all I knew was
the XRP, because you can.
Yeah, but what does DLT even mean? Like
distributed ledger technologies. Distributed ledger technologies. You can very much get into a lot of different aspects of what makes DLT.
Let him finish, guys.
Hold on, Meta. So you're saying it's DLT, but what DLT? Because
Mikkel, I will answer your question, but give me an opportunity to do it. Okay, when you integrate into RippleNet, you first start with their software layer, right? And then you can test payments that doesn't touch XRP, right? And then you can further those tests subsequently with testing with with XRP, the cryptocurrency. You don't have to touch the cryptocurrency first, right, to test RippleNet.
In this case, the first settlement mechanism was XRP.
So believe what you want. Okay, that's fine.
Hold on, Money. I have a question.
I'm not going to argue with you on this.
Just look in the nest, Money.
So
I gave you credit earlier today for being right on Polysign, but you're wrong on this one.
So, to be honest, what I know is their first integration, R3's first integration, was that integration into RippleNet, right? To see if they could transfer payments through their application. It didn't touch XRP, the first testing of it. Later on, they subsequently tested with the XRP. That's how R3 tested. And I know that from actually dealing with them and asking the engineers. Okay, so whatever proof you have in the nest, fine.
Well, it's just from R3.
Okay, I actually spoke to the engineers because I integrated with R3 in 2017. Okay, so I don't know what you're posting up in the nest.
This is 2018.
Well, I was speaking to them in 2017. Okay.
All right. Well, their first settlement mechanism was XRP.
How about you? Hey,
So the
both of you guys,
can
either of you guys post any sources or links or anything? Like, I think that would be the way to settle it, wouldn't it?
I put it up top. I can add the link if you'd like.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, no, just links. At least for everyone that cause you guys can go back and forth, but we have no basis to really go off of which is which unless we're able to refer to something.
Sure.
All right, I'll throw it up top.
I love it. You guys can go refer to that. Okay. Subsequently, they went and integrated. I think three or four other cryptocurrencies, including XDC. Right. So actually, XRP was the first one that they used, that they integrated with. If we're talking about cryptocurrencies.
All right, just to be clear here, though, because this is what I was confused about. RippleNet's not DLT, so that's right. Like RippleNet's just their proprietary messaging software, but that's not distributed ledger.
The messaging layer. Yeah, that's probably where I confused you.
Yeah, because distributed ledger would be XRP, so that's what I was confused about. But yes, they integrated with RippleNet and then XRP. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. I'm sorry if the way I
for settlement, their first mechanism was XRP.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, I think we're all saying the same thing.
We're just using different language, I guess. And then I think XDC was the third one that they integrated with. I can't remember what the two before that were. But I think XDC was the third crypto that they integrated with. So it wasn't the first one.
Okay, when I was on the Channel Islands in 2019, it was R3, XDC. Those are the ones that were taken off at the time. And not sure how they integrated to anything, but anyway, everything blew up from there. Additionally, R3 had all the partnerships, so they had like 8,000 to 10,000 distributors of where they could put the money. So XRP was looking for that.
Well, XDC, the reason why R3 integrated with XDC is because in trade finance, okay, where you have settlement that takes place 30, 90 days later, XDC had this, I believe, had the smart contract capability that was able to complete those trade finance deals that the other DLTs were not able to do.
Saul run away? What the fuck?
Yeah, sorry guys, I didn't mean to kill the room, man. My apologies, Mr. I.
No, you
Why don't you
always
guys
do.
keep talking, dude? Show some respect. Like, keep talking. Keep the conversation going, dude. You have Quincy with his knowledge, Mr. Money with his knowledge, Mick with his... Like, come on, guys. This is awkward.
Sorry, I'm shaving.
Don't be on stage. Who's shaving?
Why did Saul disappear? I would have loved to have that poly-sign conversation. That would have been interesting.
So I posted up there R3 versus Ripple, September 2017. It said how much did they want to pay them to purchase for the company up to 5 billion XRP.
Yeah, so I'm gonna leave that. Some of these spaces just get so freaking stale. People are just bickering over even the semantic things. Like, oh, do you think it's semantics? It seems to be semantics. Well, some people seem it's not semantics. And I'm like, well, explain the thing that you want to explain then. And then he explains the thing, and I'm like, yes, those are different. But they're different not because we're over here going, oh, this is this and this is this. It's because you're describing two separate constructs, not just going, oh, well. And then everyone just wants to, like, I don't know, maybe people just want to have power over words or something and feel so great. Like, oh, this means this and this. And it's like, look, people use these things interchangeably. Just talk about the fundamental things that you want to talk about and just get past this. They spend so much time spending on, oh, this is this and this is that and this. I'm like, just describe the thing. Use other words to describe the thing. And by the time we get around to, you know, actually articulating what we're trying to describe, about 90% of it overlaps. It's just, oh, it's so annoying. And people go, oh, well, technically, that's so many of this crap. It's so annoying. Like, oh, God. Sorry, like, I just get on so many of these, and I'm, like, just sitting here going, like, are we done yet? Like, are we done bickering over which word we're going to use to describe the exact same idea that we're all talking about it? Like, oh, goodness. Yeah, I can see, so the way I know you guys are getting bored is the stream actually, like, viewer base, like, spikes when there's, like, really good conversation, and then it just, like starts dropping as soon as, like, things get sort of boring. So I'm like, are you guys bored? Because I'm getting kind of bored, and I can sort of see people just dip in, so I'm like, ah. And I like the spaces. Don't get me wrong. Like, there was a space yesterday that was great, and I didn't get a chance to capture it, but I didn't get a chance to capture all of it. But even when things are sort of wacky and crazy and kind of stupid, sometimes it's hilarious, actually. So that's part of what makes it good. Anywho, I thought about hopping on the Discord again, but I do plan on doing a chat later on. Technically, I might do that more often. Every time I see somebody that's like instead of talking about the idea, we're just talking about the idea and what word we want to use for it. And like how much time do you want to spend on that before you get to what you're actually talking about? Like some of these things just go on forever. It's just like, ugh. So yeah, it's like, well, technically, well, actually, everybody. Like, it's just like, damn, just explain the thing, man. Like, now, one thing I did want to touch on, I saw this post. It's funny too, because I'll end up seeing things that I'm gonna be in, and I'm like, oh, I almost forgot I was gonna be there. So Expector, they're sort of like a metaverse type VR or metaverse type virtual spaces project. They try to create virtual worlds the same way that VR chat does. And I'm actually gonna be on their show on or their spaces on Monday. I will be streaming that, so this will be a stream that I'll have talking with other people that want to create like virtual spaces. I spend a lot of time in VR chat. So I like to talk about different experiences that I've had as well as experiences that I'd like to build. The Expector guys have invited me multiple times to build in their sort of like metaverse or whatever, like build like worlds and items and stuff like that. And it's very similar to VR chat. That's why I like it a lot. And I think it actually may be a lot higher quality based off of the game engine they use. Although it's probably going to require a lot more resources from your computer in order to run it. But I think they're really cool. They're run by Dirk and Bob Way. Bob was an old Ripple guy back in the day, super cool guy, super smart, like absolutely brilliant. He almost comes off as like that, like the cool grandpa in a sense. But no, like I definitely love hopping in their spaces. So it'd be cool to stream that next week. Goodness gosh, what other spaces are there? I might hop in a different space. But yeah, I don't know. The Discord was cool earlier. One thing, so I wonder if Bobby's still in here. Bobby! Yo, Bobby, where are you in the chat? I might do this. So Bobby Jonas, right? He's a community member. He's in the chat right now. He's in my Discord. I didn't know you had a YouTube channel until you started posting all of those memes, bro. And that was hilarious. Now, a lot of people like memes in crypto is not like a new thing, but I've never seen so many memes that have been focused around XDC. So you see like XRP memes and like XRP Army, you see like Bitcoin memes and stuff like that. But like Bobby, he just has like an insane catalog of XDC memes.
In this video, I'm going to show you this website where you can watch YouTube videos with other people.
Let me see if I can pull up one of his videos, or at least his shorts. I don't know if I've seen a lot of your videos, but I've seen a lot of your shorts, and they were pretty funny. Honestly, let's see if we can just hop through a few of these. I think I saw this one. This one's kind of funny.
XDC will kill Ethereum. There's not going to be an Ethereum killer. I mean, I think XDC will do fine, but I don't think any of these coins will actually kill Ethereum.
Hello and welcome. We have breaking news. In a historic upset, XDC, the cryptocurrency best known as the real Ethereum killer, has killed Ethereum.
XDC army, XDC, oh my god, XDC will kill Ethereum? No, that's not gonna happen. XDC is pretty solid CBDC payments coin. I have covered it before compared to XRP, compared to Stellar. It's not gonna kill Ethereum though, so yeah, that's just not true.
Actually, you know what the funniest thing about this? So, like, the past two memes, they weren't even that great. The first one was kind of funny, just with the news report. But the funniest thing about that one is, even in both of them, like, it's like you would say, oh, XTC would kill Ethereum. Well, no, XTC won't kill Ethereum. It's not bad. It's pretty good and everything. But, you know, it's like, it's actually hilarious, like, how, like, reasonable, like, the criticism may be based off of, like, you know, it's pretty good in this regard, but it may not kill. I think that's kind of actually funny, because whenever anyone says, oh, like, Doge to the moon, or this, even with XRP, when they say XRP is a Bitcoin killer, everyone just shits on XRP. But, like, it's kind of funny, even just seeing in, like, even in some of the videos where he's, like, sort of just like, oh, yeah, Ethereum's gonna, whatever. Just how people react to this. There was a few of them where... There were a few of these that were just hilarious. I don't know where they... Oh my god.
Whether you like him or don't like him, there's nothing you could do about him because he's number one. Whether you like him or don't like him, there's nothing you can do about him because he's number one.
See, like a meme like that, like that's not, like, it's not really funny. It's sort of like a hype, like, oh, getting super excited. But I never see memes like this for XDC. I always see them for Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP. So when I found Bobby's channel, I was like, holy cow, this is so sick. Like, we have a freaking community of XDC memes, little XDC army. Like, I don't know, I found your channel, like, well, I guess I didn't find it. You posted a bunch of your videos in the Discord the other day. And some of the videos were really funny. Like, some of them are just sort of like hype, like whatever, like, you know, like they're just like whatever memes. But some of them were like really funny.
Imagine the
like,
day they see you again. And you are just, well, better.
See, like, just like that, like, I feel like that's a good meme. Like, it's not even really, like, that funny. It's just, like, better. Like, it's like, all right, cool. Like, and I don't know. I just never see this. I never see this. I always see this for XRP, Bitcoin. So it's kind of, like, kind of endearing to go, like, oh, my God, this is cool. Like, look at the XDC memes. See, like, that's pretty funny. Like, that's pretty funny. It's just like, oh, yeah, we're coming, let's go. Like, don't get me wrong. It's like, it's a little bit of hype. It's a little bit just like whatever. But, like I don't know. I never see this, and it's sort of been a little pastime time. Check these out.
Anything he can do, I do better. Anything he can do, I do better. Anything he can do, I do better.
See, I would say that's a really good meme. Like, seriously. And that, I would say that's like the generic argument you would have for XDC. Obviously, I'd want to go into like trade finance and being able to facilitate a certain type of activity around trade finance and automated finance and tokenization. But yeah, like, that's like when people say, well, what makes you different than Ethereum? Like, we usually say, like, yeah, we're just higher performance Ethereum that tries to engage in trade finance activity. You know, we could do better in a sense. And, you know obviously it's a little bit, obviously, there we go. There's a tiny bit of hubris in that, because obviously Ethereum's like huge right now, but there's this notion of like, yeah, there are elements of our technology that are really cool, and just seeing memes about it are kind of funny, like this. Like, that's hilarious. Like, it's just like it's goofy, like, it's internet memes, internet fun, whatever. I kind of wish there were more of this sometimes. Like, that's hilarious. Like, like, I'm sorry. That is gold. Like, oh my goodness. But yeah, I've been like jumping around his channel, looking at some of his memes, because I thought it was so funny. And I think there's more stuff like that in XDC lately, mostly because I feel like the community's been getting a lot more mature, and a lot more people have been introduced to XDC. But for the longest time, I've never seen people like make memes of XCC like that. Always saw them in other networks and stuff. But it just has me super psyched seeing that. It's funny. I definitely watch more of them. Every single time you drop them in the Discord, I check them out because like I said, like some of them are like whatever, but like a good chunk of them are pretty funny. Or at least they like have like this vibe to them that's just like, oh, look at XCC, we're kind of cool. Like it's not even meant to be technical or even meant to be like anything like crazy. It's just like just stupid internet fun. And it's not even that stupid internet fun. It's just like stupid memes. Because you know, like people could be like, oh, to the moon or all that other crap too. I kind of like this. It's whatever. But I'm probably gonna be streaming later on the night. So I'm gonna be doing my day streams and then my night streams. Night streams are gonna be a lot more chill. I'm actually gonna be gaming with some people that are in the space, and just chilling for the most part. I don't really know how much I want to talk about all the different intricacies of blockchain or whatever. But I do end up talking with some people that are just like I said, we're just hanging out and they may bring up something and we may have a cool conversation about it, and it's cool to be able to capture. So sometimes I'll game with some guys, sometimes I'll hop in Discord, sometimes I'll hop in a space. The general like streams that I do now are primarily just gonna be focused on just that. But the night streams are gonna be really like low key, and mostly because you never know what you're gonna get. I usually come in here with like an idea of things I want to talk about, but like at night I have no idea what's gonna happen. I might run into like Daniel from Casino Coin ripping into Ripple or something, or I might run into David Schwartz from Ripple, like basically like explaining like the intricacies of like cross border remittances or something. And it's hard to plan for, but they always happen like late at night. So I'm gonna see if I can do one of those tonight and see how that goes. But yeah, Bobby, love the channel. I've definitely been checking you out a bit. Bobby, I think you can honestly, Bobby, just the last thing I might say, I think your channel could be huge if you actually incorporate some of the interesting talking points or interesting topic points of XDC into your memes. Because obviously, like you go, oh, Ethereum's better than XDC. That's cool. But like, especially talking about what those components are, and obviously they're memes, so you're probably not gonna be like super intricate. But having a hint of that, I think would make your channel blow up. Because it'd be like, oh, like look at these interesting components of XDC that are potentially means for allowing it to be bigger than Ethereum in the future, but like sort of coaxing that in like a meme. So you're not really taking it seriously, but there's sort of a serious element where it's like, yeah, no, that is true. Like that's cool. But yeah, no, definitely gonna be having more of these streams. They're not gonna be daily, but they'll be almost daily. And yeah, I'm gonna do the night streams, hanging out with other people in the space and hanging out with just people I know that are doing cool stuff, as well as seeing what's up. And yeah, super fun. Hope you guys like the streams. We'll be doing more stuff in the Discord. We'll be doing more stuff on Twitter Spaces. And I guess before I leave, I'll drop the Discord one more time. Presuming that you guys are able to join. I think you guys are. I had an issue beforehand, but it looks all good now. Anywho, yeah, so I'll be doing more streams. They'll be more consistent. Hope you guys like them. Check you guys later.